Hey guys, I'm Urizi. This story is all about what if Naruto was assigned to Asuma and Team 10. Mizuki never got to shoot his mouth off at Naruto the night he took the Scroll of Seals. Other than skipping a half-manic monologue from him, what exactly did this change for everyone's favorite blonde ninja? Who knows? Before we proceed with the story, please like and subscribe to this channel if you liked the video, and don't forget to check the description for the other works of the author if you liked the story. Let's start. Chapter 32, Adrenaline Dump. Hours after the Chunin exam tournament came to a close, and everyone wound up at the hospital. By everyone, all of Team 10 and all of the Suna team wound up at the hospital. Ino, to go with her bruised ribs from the other day that had not been done any favors by the day's fighting, also had a crushed right hand due to her connection to Kankuro and her failed sneak attack on Gaara in the boy's body. Shikamaru had chakra exhaustion, deep cuts all over his person, a busted eardrum, and torn muscles in both of his calves and thighs from complete overuse. Naruto had chakra exhaustion to an absurd degree due to how difficult it was to actually exhaust him. His broken ribs from earlier in the day were still on the mend, and his overall blood loss from the day was pretty high, not enough to need a transfusion to survive though. Not even close. On the Suna side of things, Kankuro's hand was crushed because of Ino and had burns all over. Temari had a fractured jaw, multiple first and second degree burns, a dislocated shoulder, and a concussion. Gaara had chakra exhaustion, massive burns, internal bleeding that had eventually given way to external bleeding on many areas of his body, and a torn ACL, MCL, and a dislocated patella. It was kind of hard to tell who won if you had no idea the results of the fight. I'm bored. Ino groaned while laying in a hospital bed, her hair down and dressed in a patient's gown with a few small bandages on her face. I don't even know why I'm still here. You two are the ones that are messed up, she said, crossing her arms over her chest, her right one in a cast up her forearm. Naruto was laying flat on his back in his bed, staring at the ceiling. Ino-chan, you can't even stand up without your knees buckling because you hurt so much. He turned his head towards Shikamaru's bed to see that he was asleep with a large protective cover over his ear. See, Shikamaru has a good idea. He hadn't even tried to make conversation after they shoved him into bed. Shikamaru just went right to sleep and gleefully did so. Ino rolled her eyes and lay back in her bed against the pillows with a sigh. At least they stuck you all in here with me. It would suck to be alone right now, she admitted before turning her gaze towards Naruto. So you kicked his ass like I told you to, did you? She said with a grin on her face. Right up until he tried turning into the full-on demon version of what he looked like when he hit you, Naruto said, moving his arms behind his head slowly due to the jelly feeling that they had. I didn't know we could do that. We? Ino said in a questioning voice as she raised a delicate eyebrow. Jinchuriki? Naruto said, explaining in one word what he meant. I just thought we got powers or something from the Biju. I didn't know we could actually turn into them. How the hell did he do that? I want to do that. No, you don't. Ino and Naruto looked at the door to see Fu standing there leaning against the frame looking at them both before she gave a slight wave. Hi. I heard people came to visit other people in the hospital and my teammate is here too, so I kind of had to show up anyway. Phew. Naruto said, actually excited to see her as he didn't know if her helping him to the battlefield was a one-time thing. I'd get up to hug you or something, but I can't feel my legs, or my arms either really. What is with you and the hugs? Fu responded with a strange look on her face. If you hug me again I'm still going to squish you, just so you know. The last one was your only freebie. Freebie? Naruto said, returning Fu's look with one of his own. I had to seal off your chakra to get a freebie, so it wasn't really that free. It sucked my chakra like a vacuum. Enough about that. Ino said, trying to direct the conversation back to what she was actually interested in. Why would it be bad for Naruto to be able to turn into the Kyuubi like Gaara with the Ichibi? He'd be huge and scary, and he'd have all of that chakra to use, and dash dot. Because if his demon is anything like mine then it isn't easy. Fu said, giving her own reasoning. The Nanabi usually just ignores me until I start trying to pull its chakra out. It's a real piece of work. It insists that the Tekia Seitai, adaptable body, that it gifted me with to keep me alive is all I need. Even when I use the chakra I feel different. I feel more paranoid than normal. Even though I'm supposed to be stronger I feel more jittery and scared. It's hard to really focus. Naruto started getting what Fu was talking about. Fuzzbutt gives me chakra when it thinks I'm too weak to do any better, and then it'll tell me that I'm a weakling and that I'm pathetic. Then when I start fighting I get madder and start focusing on nothing but what I'm supposed to be destroying. He stopped thinking when he started using the Kyuubi's chakra, content in trading blows with Gaara until Shikamaru got his head on straight. A nod came from Fu as if that was the answer she had expected from him. The Biju overwhelm our emotions over time and turn our personalities into what they want us to be. The people sure don't help either. The Nanabi is a surly bastard or bitch that tunes out the entire world around it until it needs to react to something, only giving me the chakra it feels that I need for my jutsu. I have to wake it up to get anything else from it, and when I do, all it wants me to do is to get away from anything around me, hence the wings. They're not intended to fight, they're meant to get me away from danger. Well, that also explained why Fu so readily went with her own personality traits. So Gaara's a crazy killer because of the Ichibi? Ino questioned, since Fu was basically saying that some Jinchuriki were influenced by their Biju. What's the point of even doing something like that? Control. Fu said, you can either give in to what the Biju wants from you if it's not destructive like what mine wants, or you can fight against it and your will can try to exercise control, but they don't like that. So I just take what the Nanabi lets me have. I don't press for more because if I'm not as good as I think I am I can lose all control over myself. What I get is usually enough to win though. Naruto was getting confused by what Fu was telling him. He was still new at the whole Jinchuriki thing. So you're saying that I should fight the way I feel when I use the chakra? That will make me stronger. He had to admit that it felt more natural when he and Gaara were trying to straight up smack each other around. He had to force himself to deviate from that plan of action. A look of deliberation came over Fu as she tried to ponder and come up with a response. No, you don't seem to be the type to take too well to the whole berserk massacring thing. Shocked expressions came over Naruto and Ino's faces. What? You said that the emotions you feel when you use the Kyuubi's chakra are anger and destruction. Do you think that the feeling just gets weaker or stays the same when you draw on more of the power? It'll magnify, it's going to get stronger. She gave Naruto a look of disbelief. Didn't anyone ever tell you this stuff before? Ino decided to answer for Naruto as he seemed to be deep in thought. He didn't really find out he had anything in him in the first place until a month ago, I think. Why? Who's teaching you to use your chakra? Fu asked them, getting blank looks. Nobody? Really? What the hell? Who doesn't teach their Jinchuriki how to use their Biju? I was at least given a bit of instruction from what others knew. Then again, who really taught Gaara how to do anything? Maybe that's why he was so imbalanced. So what can you do with your Biju? Heal quicker, and I get faster and stronger. Naruto said with a serious face, although he tilted his head when Fu looked as if she were waiting for him to continue. That's it. Fu then proceeded to palm her forehead. What? Aside from the healing quicker thing, we can all do that, rookie. Weren't you paying attention when I was kicking your ass or when you and Gaara were smacking each other around? Fu said with an impatient tint in her voice. Impatient because he was more or less telling her that he didn't know how to do anything that wasn't instinctual and automatic. In the instance of a rematch, there was no way she loses to this kid twice in her mind. No way. She wanted to fight him again to prove a point right then. Naruto and Ino looked at each other blankly before looking back at Fu and speaking simultaneously. Well, what else can he do? How should I know? Fu said, throwing her arms in the air wantonly. I'm the Nanabi Jinchuriki, not the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Naruto wanted to jump out of bed and go after her if his body would have allowed it. Instead, he simply fell out of bed on his attempt and landed on his head. Gah. Well, what am I supposed to do? I don't freaking know. Different demons in different bodies, Uzumaki. Fu said again before opening the door to the room back up and exiting. You figure it out. As far as I know, friends don't give each other advice or anything, so get off my back. And with that, she shut the door with authority, showing that she didn't necessarily have control over her powers at the moment when the glass shattered and the wood of the door cracked from the force. The entire room was quiet with the exception of Shikamaru mumbling about how people needed to shut the hell up and let him sleep. Naruto blinked from his place on the ground before grinning. Bye, Fu. Don't be a stranger. Ino just stared at the mostly broken door with a deadpan look on her face. Well, that wasn't really a pleasant visit. What was all of that talk about friends? That was kind of weird. Oh. Naruto said as if he had forgotten to lock his door or something, still stuck on the ground. We're friends now, I think. She still needs some work on the whole idea about it though. So can you help me up? Ino just looked over the side of her bed at him. I would, but I can't pick you up on my own. If I got up to try it'd just end with both of us down there in a big mess. Sorry Goldie-kun. She said before laying back down properly on her pillow. You can stay like that until a nurse checks in, can't you? Does it hurt? Just my pride, and my head, and neck, and ribs. Naruto said with a sigh as he slid down into a straight and more natural position on the ground. At that moment the door opened and Asuma walked in followed by Kurenai and teammate. Good work you guys. Asuma said walking in first before stopping once he saw Naruto on the floor. I want to ask how you got down there, but whatever you say is just going to make me second guess you, so don't tell me how you fell. With that he walked over and picked up Naruto with much discomfort due to his injuries, but anyway you did great out there. Kiba jogged up to Naruto's bed and rapped him lightly on the shoulder, ignoring the glare from the blonde. That was some scary stuff. He said, modifying his language once he saw Kurenai giving him a stern glance, getting a few mocking barks from Akamaru. I would have made it look cooler than you, but good work anyway. He looked back at his team with a grin and pointed something out. Whoa, who broke the door, dude? Naruto accepted the praise from the usually brash dog user until he thought about something. Wait, how would you have made it look cooler than me? Did you see that explosion? It was huge. Shino adjusted his sunglasses on his face before responding. How would it have been more astounding, you ask? I believe that you were looking at the explosion when it went off. He saw Naruto's expression drop and saw Kiba nod in agreement with his statement. Yes. I'm afraid you shouldn't have been looking at your explosion. That's day one stuff, Naruto. Kiba said decisively. It's not my fault, I keep forgetting. Naruto disputed lamely. I just know how awesome my explosions are, so I have to look at them. It was more of a need, really. Apparently Shikamaru didn't have the same need to look at his own explosions to feel the satisfaction of a job well done. That guy was weird, or maybe it was just him. Hinata walked up to Naruto's bed, getting his attention of her presence as she seemed scared to even be there. She couldn't even look him in the eyes. What's the matter, Hinata? He asked her. Finally looking up to meet Naruto's curious gaze, her already reddening face turned even redder as she couldn't bring out what she wanted to say. Kiba blocked snickers at her odd actions while Naruto's eyes just squinted at her, trying to decipher what she needed. Deciding to save the poor girl from passing out from anxiety, Kurenai rolled her red eyes and put a hand on Hinata's shoulder, getting her to take a few steps back. Apparently this was enough to get her to calm down. However, instead of addressing merely Naruto as she looked like she was going to do at first, she spoke to everyone. That was great. I can't believe that you all won. Naruto just rubbed the back of his head bashfully while Ino looked proud despite looking beaten up. Shikamaru just mumbled and turned over onto his side in his bed, scratching his bandaged ear irritably. So why are you guys still all not able to walk and stuff? Kiba asked. Didn't the blonde lady with the huge dash? Once again, Kurenai kept Kiba from uttering some blue comment with a stern look. The blonde lady with the pet pig, yeah. Anyway, didn't she come heal you guys yet? Because she fixed my head right up hours ago. The two disgruntled looks from Naruto and Ino basically said that they hadn't been fixed up the way he was saying. A knock came on the wall at the doorway and everyone looked to see Shizune standing there with a clipboard in her hand and a smile on her face. Sorry. Tsunade-sama and myself had to deal with injuries that were either worse than you all had suffered or were far simpler to handle. She should be here in a moment. She walked into the room and stood with everyone, waiting on Tsunade and deciding to talk about something. Congratulations. I've never seen rookie teams get so far in the exams before, let alone win, so all of you did wonderfully. Promotion wonderfully. Kiba said hopefully. First round loss or not, he still wanted to believe that he had a chance, slim though it may have been. When are we supposed to know what happened? Kurenai personally didn't think she had the heart to tell him that he probably wasn't getting promoted at all from the experience, so she just decided to postpone the disappointment. You'll find out when we head home, Kiba. Just be patient. Be patient so that his griping could be dealt with by his mother or sister instead of her. Shizune had moved over to Shikamaru and had begun to heal his ear due to how readily available it was in his sleep as the long day began dragging to a close outside. Elsewhere in the hospital, Gaara's eyes snapped open abruptly to see Sekka standing over him healing his wounds. Upon noticing that Gaara was awake, the medic Nin backed away in case Gaara was offended to the point of trying to kill him. Even though he wouldn't be in any condition to do so even with the treatment given, there was always some sort of possibility with him for violence. Instead of trying to attack the insignificant medic, Gaara thought better of it. He had done his job and had actually made it so that he could get up and go finish off Uzumaki Naruto, who was probably just as hurt as he was. He found that his complete lack of chakra made it hard to even sense where his sand was in the room, but even so if he could get up then it wouldn't matter. Stand down, Gaara. The Kazekage had been sitting silently in a chair the entire time at the end of the room watching. As he said that, Temari and Kankuro popped up from their own beds to look towards the brother they thought had been unconscious. "You're not leaving this room without me, and you're not being left alone after the little stunt you pulled in the arena." There were actually samurai guards outside to ensure that the very conflict-prone Gaara would not try to hunt down the team he had lost to, a full possession? What on earth were you thinking? You had been expressing more control than that over the years. "Let me go," Gaara said, at that point noticing that he was surrounded by the Kazekage's gold dust, probably meant to hold him down if he tried to leave and continue where he left off. "It isn't over yet. I haven't killed Uzumaki, I haven't proven my existence. Your existence isn't to kill some single Konoha brat." The Kazekage snapped at Gaara, never understanding just what his son's issue happened to be with killing to prove anything about himself. "Your existence is supposed to be as soon as Trump, the example of the skill of our shinobi, not as some petty random killer. You're meant to be better than that." Gaara glared at the man, wishing he was strong enough to put him through what he had been put through by the Kazekage in the past. "Don't give me a useless lecture. The things that you say to me have very little meaning. I honestly couldn't care less of your opinion in me since it was clear from the start that I have no true value to any of you." Temari and Kankuro looked at each other before the girl spoke up. "That's not true, Gaara. Even if you hate us, you're still our brother. We're on your side no matter what, we're your family." It was clear from the fact that he wasn't even looking at her that he wasn't listening. "That's why when I thought that you had been hurt so badly by that kid that he was about to finish you, I lost it. I almost killed him right then and there if it hadn't been for his team." With that, Gaara's eye flickered over to hers, whether because she had admitted to trying to take his fight or because she had said she had attempted to strike someone down in vengeance for his own wounds, she wasn't sure. "You were about to kill Uzumaki," Gaara said, his voice lifting in a disbelieving fashion as he couldn't think that someone that was deathly afraid of him could stand up to Naruto. "You're actually capable of killing someone that powerful." Temari's face darkened as she remembered how she felt when she got a look at Gaara's blood-covered form. "If I had another second or two we wouldn't be having this conversation because he'd be dead and you'd know for certain." Her features softened again with an uncharacteristically worried look. "I don't care if you said he was your target, Gaara. If he was going to do that to you and I had the power to stop him, I would have done it. I'd try it again if I had to." Gaara didn't know what he felt about hearing that. Temari had basically just said that his need to prove himself meant nothing as long as he was in danger, but in the same vein she had also said that she was willing to protect him, even against someone that had proven to be superior strength-wise. The angry red mark on her face, clearly the most blatant place where she had paid the price for attempting to do so, spoke volumes to him. "Why?" Gaara asked, narrowing his eyes at her suspiciously. "Why would you possibly subject yourself to something like that? You do not have the power inside of you that I have, that mother has given me to crush my enemies. You are far weaker than me, so why would you ever try to involve yourself in any battle of mine?" Temari didn't know how to say it to him other than the blunt way, so Kankuro expressed it for her. "Because you're her brother, Gaara." He said plainly. Temari might be a frigid bitch. This elicited a harsh glare from said frigid bitch, "But we're still her brothers. We're supposed to look out for each other even if the other doesn't want us to." Gaara's mind flashed back to how Shikamaru interjected himself into his fight with Naruto even when it was clear that he would more or less be useless and Naruto just wanted to get him out of the way. Still, Shikamaru did not leave. He stayed close until the end and even seemed to be helping the exhausted Naruto afterwards, despite the fact that in Gaara's mind Naruto could have crushed Shikamaru for being insolent when it was clear that his presence kept Naruto from doing what he wanted to in the fight. But he didn't. Naruto was supposed to be like him, and there was someone that even at the risk of personal peril seemed to stand by him when it was clear he was under his demon's influence. He could also take things another way. For instance, as long as Naruto had his team, he would never get to battle against him without the fools interfering. In response to Kankuro and Temari, Gaara still didn't say a thing. But if they were serious, they would know that they would never get close enough to betray him. Kankuro's injuries were evidence of that. If they were earnest, then at least in the occurrence of proving his existence against the one he needed to kill they would be useful, an extension of his absolute defense. Was that what they were saying, about how a family was supposed to be? Even when he didn't desire his sand to come to his defense, it did regardless. Was this something like that? He would see. In his mind, if they weren't true, then there would be no real consequence. They all knew they couldn't lay a hand on him. They would be picked off sooner or later, even if he didn't choose to do it himself. If they were useful, then there was a far greater chance of him showing the world that he was there and that he existed. If they were fool enough to believe that he needed or wanted them around, then that was their mistake. So why did it feel so scary yet so good to hear Temari say what she did? What was he thinking about it so hard for? It didn't matter in the end. Night had fallen and Naruto lay in his bed with Tsunade standing over him healing his injuries. He swore she waited to work on him last just to get on his nerves. Maybe because he proved her wrong in the end and won the exams? He just wished he could see her face to see if his smirk was irking her. He couldn't see her face because of the fact that her bountiful chest was looming over his point of view. So in that case he couldn't necessarily say that his situation was bad at all. Meanwhile, from her bed, Ino was staring at him with an annoyed frown on her face because the mean lady from the other day with the massive boobs stood hovering over Naruto, and she figured his smirk was from him thoroughly enjoying it. It was kind of something that made her feel a little self-conscious until she realized she was just 12 years old. Wait, why the hell do I care about my chest size? What's wrong with me? Tsunade backed away from Naruto, deactivating her healing jutsu in order to give him a once-over in case she missed anything, and finally noticed his smirk. What's with that look, brat? If anything, the smirk grew more pronounced at that. You mean you don't have anything to say? You really don't have anything that you want to tell us, something about how we didn't have a chance in hell of winning or something like that? Tsunade scoffed. That was before I knew you were a Jinchuriki, that shouldn't count, and you made me lose so much money during this exam, brat. She said, grabbing his shoulders and shaking him furiously before letting the dizzy blonde go peacefully, leaving him with a pet him on the head. But also thanks to you and your friends I'm back in the black due to the long shot bet for the last 2 rounds. Thanks a lot for that. Recovering from being lifted up and shaken like a burlap sack by the deceptively strong lady, Naruto swatted her hand away irritably. Yeah? Well, why are you even here healing us right now anyway? Shizune did it because she's nice. I don't know why you're doing it. I'm getting paid, that's why. Tsunade said, in a chipper mood for some reason. She seemed way happier than he had figured she would be after meeting her once. You and a bunch of others just like you got beaten up pretty badly if you weren't paying attention. Instead of just relying on the samurai treatments to have them sitting around here for weeks before being able to leave with them safely, Sarutobi-sensei hired me to patch you lot up enough to move out in a day or 2. Oh, well, that explained it. She was getting money for healing them. So everyone's okay now? Shikamaru asked, showing some interest in what she had to say. Chuji had taken it kind of hard the day before. It was difficult to watch if Shikamaru were to tell the truth. They're all fine, right? Yeah. Tsunade said, finishing her final check-through of Naruto. The Lee kid's muscles were shredded like cheese, but he'll be fine. Sore as hell for the next 2 weeks, but he'll be able to walk with crutches tomorrow, probably without if he really wanted to. The Akimichi boy had some serious impact damage done to his back and spine. He'll be stiff for a week and won't be able to throw a punch that could even bust a grape for 2. And the Uchiha kid was the worst off. He had to be kept sedated just to keep him from being in pain all the time. Way too many injuries for me to say here without the chart, but now he just needs rest. He's going to be one big ugly bruise for the time being though. Hearing that made everyone in the room calm down. Even if they were on other teams in what was a competition, they were still comrades, classmates, friends even in some cases. There was nothing good about watching them all get carted away at one point or another. With that, Tsunade kept talking. No one else really took any kind of injury that was too threatening, except for the older genin that was found dead this morning that seemed to just stop breathing during the night. Now there was a team that took a beating. Kind of ironic that the only one of them to survive was a medic nin. She mused offhandedly. So Kabuto's team bit the dust. Naruto and Shikamaru really didn't like the older ninja for some reason that they didn't understand. Something about him just rubbed them the wrong way even if they had no logical reason to believe so. He didn't seem strong enough to be a threat, and even early in the exams when he seemed to be playing some sort of angle, nothing ever came of it. It was still weird to hear, and more evidence that they were lucky to get out of their own battle with the Suna team all in one piece. So, Naruto said, trying to change away from the morbid subject, "You're Hokageji's student? Does that mean you worked with Ero-sensei before?" A questioning look from Tsunade made Naruto remember that his nickname for the pervert wasn't exactly worldly known, I mean Jiraiya. Tsunade's eyes widened in recognition. "You train with that goat of a pervert?" "Of course you do, you were staring at my chest for the entire time I was healing you," she said, placing a hand at her temple at having to deal with possibly the student of that lecturer. "That wasn't what I was doing." Naruto snapped with red on his cheeks, "And yeah, I do train with him. He's kind of the whole reason I even know about the dash dot." He stopped himself, realizing that he wasn't talking to someone close to him. "The Kyuubi." Tsunade finished for him, giving him a look that said, "I'm not blind, kid. I didn't think the container would grow up to be such a runt though, but the orange chakra is a dead giveaway for anyone that's even a little knowledgeable about it." She then noticed him and all of the genin in the room staring at her suspiciously. "Cyan, I don't care that he has the damn thing, seriously. Or do you think I wasn't paying attention to the crazy Jinchuriki that was about to try and squash the entire arena just to keep fighting you for an exam? That one was seriously screwed in the head." A dry look came over the face of Shikamaru. "I think I should start asking at this point, who didn't know that he had the Kyuubi sealed in him? People we've never even met know without even being told." Naruto ignored that, not really caring at that moment. "So if you're Ero-sensei's teammate, then why don't you stay in the village? You don't even wear the headband." "Because Sarutobi-sensei let me leave," Tsunade said as a method of explaining. "What does he need me around for? There are tons of medics in Konoha these days, and there's nothing that requires a ninja as powerful as me around. Jiraiya's never really there either. He left for years at a time, even back when he was your age. Hell, when we were in the middle of a war he stayed back in a megacooler to watch over some orphans. I haven't even seen him in years, and don't even get me started on the other teammate of ours. You don't want to hear about any of that." Ino blinked as she started putting things together. "So, you don't do anything? You just go from place to place, just doing what? Do you get sent missions? Do you even stay in contact with the village?" "Hell no," Tsunade said derisively. "If Sarutobi-sensei needs me, really needs my help, then I'll come back for a little while and that's it. I'm not going back for anyone or anything. I don't have any reasons to stay there anymore. All I have is Shizune, and she's with me all the time anyway." Something about the way she said that made Naruto feel for her a bit. "So you're never going back to Konoha?" "I kind of have to now," Tsunade said with a shrug, "otherwise I can't get paid the necessary amount that it would take for the service's greatest medic ninja in the entire world. That old man really must think the world of you brats to hire me to kiss your boo-boos like this." "Hey," Naruto said defensively, "Hokagejiji is totally awesome. How do you get off talking about him like that?" Ino sighed and palmed her face. "Naruto, you called Hokage-sama old man to his face 45 times on the way up here from Konoha, why can't Tsunade-sama do it too?" Tsunade looked at Ino, impressed at the girl referring to her in such a manner, before turning back to Naruto with a haughty look. "It's nothing personal, kid. It's just I think it was kind of dumb for him to take the seat back up at his age 12 years ago. He had already passed it off to the Yondaime Hokage, that Minato. It's not his responsibility to take back over once Minato went and got himself off sealing the Kyuubi in you." Ino and Shikamaru saw Naruto visibly bristle at the remark, and Jiraiya might be a few cards short of a deck, but at least he was never fool enough to take that job. What a waste of effort. And why's that? Naruto suddenly said cantankerously, getting her attention. Being Hokage is awesome. Being Hokage lets you protect the village. It means that you're the strongest, and people are supposed to look up to you and believe in you. Why is it stupid to want to do that with yourself? Because every Hokage has died early. Tsunade said grimly. Sarutobi-sensei is the only one that's made it to be as old as he is. He must be some kind of lucky. But all of the others wound up dying in the end. You might as well jump into a ditch and throw dirt on yourself now if that's what you really want to do, because that's all it'll get you in the end. That seemed to sober Naruto up before he shook his head, not willing to accept what Tsunade was saying. That's what they all knew could happen. They're supposed to put the village and the villagers first. What was the Yondaime supposed to do? Just run away and let the Kyuubi attack the village and kill everyone? No, he was the Hokage. He knew no one else could stop it, and he did it himself, even if he did end up just sticking it in me. I'll bet all of the others died like that too, saving people and keeping the village safe. A laugh came from Tsunade. So you think you would be okay with that? You think you could just go and get yourself killed, knowing that you aren't going to survive just so that others won't die? Naruto looked at Ino and Shikamaru before turning back to Tsunade with a serious look. I thought I'd watched them die in front of me before when I couldn't do anything about it. I thought I'd seen my old sensei die in front of me before, and I thought there was nothing I could do about it. That feeling of being weak and useless. I can't live with it. So I told myself I'd get strong enough to make sure that would never happen for real, and that I'd die before letting it. If I'll do that for a handful of people, then why wouldn't I do it for the whole village too? Being Hokage is my dream, even if I know what it really means. Tsunade just stared at him and fought the urge to rub her eyes as if she were seeing someone else right in front of her. Shaking her head, she turned her eyes down to the clipboard and started to walk out of the room, opening the door to leave. Well, you should all be able to get up and move around tomorrow just fine. I don't want you getting out of bed for anything until sunup. And who broke this door? She asked no one in particular before shutting it behind her. Late night streets of the village. A pair of figures walked through the streets dressed in black robes emblazoned with red clouds, large straw hats sitting on the top of their heads. So, one of the figures started in a hard voice, that was some crazy exam, huh? Makes me wish they had international ones like this back when I was a genin. So many victims, you know what I'm saying, Itachi-san. Underneath the hat a grin with shark-like teeth could be seen. No names, Kisame. Itachi said calmly. You know that we are not to be discovered yet. This is too much of a hornet's nest to be caught up in. It is of great importance that we are not revealed as anything other than travelers at the moment. There are already eyes on our attire in the 5 nations. Luckily Tetsu no Kuni has little concern over shinobi affairs. Yeah, I know. Kisame said dismissively. I can't believe the Ichiba Jinchuriki tried to go off in the middle of the arena. That would have made my day for sure. Your brother didn't do too badly for being the baby Uchiha against a trained Jinchuriki either. Did you enjoy seeing him again? He received no response from the quiet Itachi. Well, I'm just glad that by now I don't need you to speak in order to have a conversation with you. Otherwise I'd be bored as hell all the time. Itachi finally spoke up, but not about what Kisame had addressed him over. We report back to Leader Sama over what we've seen from the capabilities of the Jinchuriki of the Ichiba, Nanabi, and Kyuubi. Let's go. A chuckle came from Kisame. So you're not going to stop by your brother's place in the hospital to say hello? He said teasingly. Who says that I didn't already? Hearing Itachi say that so calmly got Kisame to stop in his tracks as the cool, collected Itachi kept walking on ahead without missing a beat. Another grin slowly popped up on Kisame's face as he started walking again to catch up. You're a sly devil, Itachi-san, a real, bona fide scary person. I'm glad you're on my side. Nearby hospital, Team 7's room. Kakashi peeked his head into the room to check over Sasuke and Chuji as the two slept. Once Tsunade had fixed them up, Kakashi had finally been able to convince Sakura to head back to the hotel room to get some sleep now that they were assured to be fine, so he was alone as he popped in on his 2 students. Once he looked at the very calmly sleeping boys, he found something sitting on Sasuke's chest while he slumbered. Walking into the room without a sound, Kakashi made his way to Sasuke and picked up a note off of his chest with a pen drawing of the Uchiha crest on it. Opening it up, Kakashi simply read a small message. Still not good enough, little brother. Even after all of these years, I am still waiting on you to obtain my eyes, my power. Until that point in time, you will never finish me. Don't forget what you have to do, or choose to remain weak like the rest of our former clan. Kakashi immediately crushed the note in his hand and turned to leave the room. Itachi? He was in this country and he got to Sasuke without anyone being alerted. All just to send the boy a message to taunt him. Why won't he just leave him alone? Sasuke didn't need to see that. He was finally doing well without being solely driven by the need to butcher Itachi in cold blood. There was no need to take one step forward and then two right back. As he left the room, if Kakashi had seen Sasuke's face, he might have noticed the subtle twitches of a face experiencing something they had seen 1,000 times before, but something that still got them to the bone every time. Later that night, Sasuke would wake up after experiencing the slaughter of his entire clan through his older brother's eyes again. Days later, Tanokuni. Welcome back, Orochimaru-sama. A young man with a dull look in his pale green eyes said. He had shoulder-length white hair, 2 red clan dots on his forehead, and wore a loose lavender shirt, black pants, and a purple belt tied similarly to his master around the back of his waist. A tattoo of 3 curved lines sat on his collarbone. Things have been running well in your absence. I hope your trip was beneficial. Quite Kimimaro-kun. Orochimaru said as they both walked through the rather dimly lit hallways of one of Orochimaru's hideouts. The exams were quite a rush to see in person. I really wish you could have come, you would have enjoyed it. So much prime talent. What was done with our representatives, by the way? They were given the proper punishment for the failure in the important mission requested by your partner Gato-san. Kimimaro said calmly, though it didn't sound like it was a mere slap on the wrist. Unless simply being killed was a slap on the wrist in Otagaku, trash cannot be allowed to pollute the ranks. Well, Orochimaru was going to let them live simply because he honestly had expected them to fail the entire time. It was actually intended for them to fail, hence why he signed off on the mission to kill Uchiha Sasuke in the first place. But it was of no consequence in the end. Kin and Zuka could be easily replaced just as Dosu could. They were just bodies in the grand scheme of things. There were more important and fruitful endeavors to be had at the moment. That cockroach Gato was if nothing else useful for the things he picked up with his disgusting antennae, and he had actually given Orochimaru something good, aside from the steady funding of course. Kimimaro, I see a chance for great opportunity and gain. I believe I should contact the Mizukage about his problem with Kekai Genkai. It's a problem that he can do without and that I can't get enough of. I don't think sending you for a meeting would be a good idea though. Orochimaru-sama. Kimimaro said in confusion as to why he wouldn't be sent as the first choice to accomplish a mission seen as important for the man. He then remembered that the civil war raging in Kiri was over the taint of those with bloodline limits. This made Kimimaro feel wanted, as he was not to be sent and cast into the lands of those that would possibly kill him without a second thought. He was too valuable to be cast aside. I'll send a simple messenger in case Yagura's response is less than accepting of my gracious offer. Orochimaru said, maybe once the actual operation begins you can have your little homecoming. Days later, Konohagaku no Sato. The outgoing Konoha teams that were sent out to compete in the Chunin exams walked back through the front gates to be applauded by tons of villagers that had been there specifically to wait for their return and for the return of their Hokage. They even got an extra treat in the rare sighting of Tsunade as well. Most of the genin, after being given a moment to soak up the accolades for a bit, were immediately escorted to the hospital for a second look at their injuries to make sure they were alright. Surprise was frozen on the face of Naruto as he was among the group walking through the village. He was unnerved at the cheering at first, thinking that he was just in the middle of what was mostly for the other genin on jobs well done, until he noticed that many of the villagers were looking at him as well. Some actually calling out for him to look at them so he could specifically see them cheering him. It was quite the 180 from what he had experienced before he ever even became a genin. The whole experience was overwhelming, and when he felt a hand on his shoulder and looked over to see the Hokage looking down at him with a smile, it had to be the best feeling of his life, and he soaked it all up, waving right back and putting on a show. Getting the accolades from actual Konoha villagers was something way better than getting it from the people that didn't know who he had been at first. If he had Jiraiya's stupid grandiose poses down, then it would have been a good time for them. Eventually the route wound up with the genin and their respective Jonin sensei standing in front of Hiruzen's desk with the elders Koharu and Homura at his sides. The genin were arranged to stand in lines directly in front of their Jonin as Hiruzen sat down and lit up his pipe before choosing to speak. You all performed admirably during the exams to make it as far as you did. Even more impressive by the fact that most of you are so young. So now I will share with you the judges' ruling on your performances. On-site judges and the opinions of observing judges from Konoha are taken into account for the decisions and they are final, understood? Yes, Hokage-sama. All of the genin in attendance said as one. A nod came from the old man as Homura handed him the rulings for the first team. Due to the loss of his team in the exams, will Yakushi Kabuto step forward first? Kabuto demurely did as asked and still looked rather shell-shocked from being the only one on his team that was left alive in the end. Hiruzen's face softened at the sight of the unfortunate young man. How many times has it been, Kabuto? He asked, though not in a mocking fashion. Well, this time would make it 8, Hokage-sama. Kabuto said, trying to make it sound funny, but failing due to apparent nerves. The loss of your team was a tragedy. Hiruzen said to the bespectacled medic, but I still cannot pass you and promote you to Chunin, Kabuto, I'm sorry. Kabuto looked down at the ground in a dejected fashion. Do not give up, a medic nin is always a valuable commodity to any squad, a critical form of support. You're a smart boy. If your combat capabilities can be improved, you will advance next time, of that I am sure. Your father should be proud of you. Kabuto bowed slightly before stepping back. Thank you, Hokage-sama. He said as he fell back in line standing in front of his sensei. The consensus thought around the room was poor guy as far as Kabuto was concerned. Lost his team and didn't even get promoted for the trouble. What a week for him. Might guys, team 9 of the previous year's graduation class, will you step forward next? Tenten, Neji, and Lee did as instructed and waited for the Hokage to read through the judging on them before he spoke again. I'll begin with Neji. You show incredible talent in battle, clearly on par with a Chunin's capabilities. On this merit alone you could be warranted promotion. However, you showed that you are willing to settle with an aggressive reactionary pace in battle. You are willing to let an opponent dictate the pace of the battle due to a belief in your own superiority. I'm sure you realized how well that works for you when your enemy is able to match you. Neji frowned and flicked his eyes toward Naruto before frowning but nodded nonetheless. You can be ruled by having emotion cloud your mindset in combat. We cannot promote you, I am sorry. Neji nodded and stepped back. Rock Lee. Lee looked excited to see if he had gotten promoted or not until Hiruzen began to speak. A ninja specializing in nothing more than taijutsu excelling as you have is remarkable, truly inspirational, my boy. Lee was beaming by this point. However, despite your skill you are impulsive and too willing to show your hand unnecessarily. You informed an opponent that knew nothing about you of your deficiencies in nin and genjutsu. This led to your downfall against that opponent's teammate in the next fight. In the following round you activated multiple variations of the Forbidden 8 gates when there was no need to activate that many to defeat your opponent. This left you unable to put up a fight against your next enemy, and for nothing really. I am sorry, but you cannot be promoted at this time. Hearing how Neji and Lee weren't getting promoted didn't fill Tenten with much confidence of her own chances, but she stood ready for his critique regardless. Tenten. You only had one fight to comment on. Your battle was contested solely on your terms. From the outset the entire fight was done by way of how you chose to operate. Your opponent was forced to adapt to how you fought repeatedly, and when he did for most of it you were still able to impose your will and turn things to your favor. However, you found yourself trapped at the end when you thought you had your opponent boxed in. It was not a flawless performance by any means, but there is still enough here to promote you. Tenten's eyes lit up, putting a smile on the old man's face as he added something else. Your style is technically support though, so if you can manage to find a way to acclimate yourself more to direct battle as a leader you have incredible potential for further growth. Can you do this? Tenten nodded rapidly and almost teleported forward once the Konoha flak jacket was held up for her to accept. She had to bite back an excited squeal as she stepped back to her teammates and received applause from the Hokage, the Jonin sensei, and the other genin there. Seeing someone actually get promoted got the others still to be reviewed excited. That meant that there was always a chance, Tenten only fought once and lost in the end. Teammate, the Genin squad under Yui Kurenai, please step forward. Hinata and Shino looked rather grim while Kiba still had a light of optimism in regards to their chances, until Hiruzen spoke. In life sometimes there are just unlucky events. You were all forced to fight a team with an aspect that no normal genin should have had to face. Even though there were questionable actions taken by someone in that match to prevent much from being seen of you, I cannot judge the performance that I have to deem incomplete. I cannot promote any of you, I'm afraid. Shino and Hinata nodded, expecting as much since they didn't get to really show any skills that would warrant such, but Kiba just stood frozen until Kurenai grabbed his shoulder and pulled him back. There's always next time, Kiba. You can try again in the next one. I can guarantee you that it won't be as difficult as this one was. Team 7 under Hatake Kakashi, step forward please. Sasuke, Sakura, and Chuji all did as requested and waited patiently for him to speak. Hiruzen had been informed by Kakashi of what had occurred with the message left the other night, but had told him he would handle it and that there was nothing to fear of the sort from Itachi. Still, this was about something completely different, so that wasn't an issue at the time, even though he was certain Kakashi would bring it up at the next opportunity. This team has a good mixture of someone with a good head on her shoulders in Sakura and a considerable amount of battle force in Chuji. He started, getting sad smiles from the two he mentioned because they could tell what was next, but I cannot promote either of you due to what you both lack at the moment. Sakura, you are very perceptive and intelligent, however you simply lack the overall combat prowess to lead a squad. Against effective opposition you showed yourself to be something of a liability when left alone. On the opposite hand, Chuji, you simply are not ready on the basis of maturity, motivation, and stratagem. It hadn't escaped anyone's notice that he hadn't dismissed Sasuke at all yet. Out of the three of you I can see that one of you in fact has a firm grasp on what is required. Hiruzen looked towards Sasuke, who tried to seem uninterested while failing miserably. Sasuke, you have the combat skill as has been expected of you by way of the gifts of your clan, but you also showed a way to manipulate the elements of a battlefield to your advantage right under an enemy's nose. You also showed natural leadership qualities, taking charge of your team combat strategy in the quarter-final round and something of a protective streak for a teammate in need. That is important as well as a leader, as well as showing that even when your comrade fell, instead of falling apart you continued forward with the battle. Sometimes that will be the result in a mission. When your friends are losing their heads around you, you still find a way to keep your own. He finished grimly before holding up a flak vest. You are promoted to Chunin, my boy. Be proud of yourself. Sasuke couldn't help but put on a smile as he walked forward to receive his prize for his performance. He couldn't even feel his nagging sore injuries at the moment. The feeling was euphoric when he walked back and got a pat on the shoulder and back from Kakashi and Chuji. He even let Sakura give him a hug, and he sincerely hoped that she didn't believe that gave her the right to do it again whenever she wanted. It was a one-time deal. Team 10 under Sarutobi Asuma, please come forward. Ino and Naruto almost tripped in their haste to step forward and get the whole thing over with. Shikamaru didn't seem to care one way or the other and in his head kind of hoped that they would fail, or at least he would fail. He wouldn't hold Ino and Naruto back just for him. Hiruzen let out a chuckle at the fidgeting Ino and Naruto and the yawning Shikamaru. This is the team that ran the gauntlet, I see. He looked towards Asuma, who just shrugged with a grin on his face. Well, Naruto, I'll start with you. Naruto snapped to immediate attention and could swear he was sweating bullets. Please be good news, come on. It is quite clear, even to one that is blind, that you have the combat skill needed without question. Hiruzen started as he stared down the young Jinchuriki, but your judgment though, is based mostly on your own determination to not lose instead of what is appropriate to win with the least amount of loss. That didn't sound good. Every strategy you wound up creating was done under duress with the exception of what was executed in your duel with Hyuga Neji. However, what you did come up with more than often worked and allowed you to overcome an opponent that otherwise would have defeated you based off of her experience and ability to match and outdo your power. Also, you never endangered anyone other than yourself with any of your more impulsive plans of action. And I believe that Jiraiya and my son would attempt to kill me if I held you back. Naruto's eyes widened. You mean? Yes, my boy. Hiruzen said, holding up a vest. Come and get your vest, you've been promoted. Keep up the good work. Naruto refrained from jumping over the desk and tackling Hiruzen in a hug. he would do that later when he wouldn't get in trouble for it. In the meantime he ran forward and grabbed his flak jacket happily, immediately taking off his windbreaker and putting the well-padded piece of tactical gear on in its place. It was a little rigid and needed to be broken in, but other than that it was great. Miss Yamanaka Ino. Hiruzen got her attention before any congratulations could be given. You've taken a different development of your skill set than most Yamanaka ninja would have taken. At that she pouted. It wasn't her fault if this would end up with her not getting promoted. Her dad didn't want to teach her anything else. The way you fought was a welcome surprise that your enemies didn't agree with. Even in defeat and with deep injuries you were able to effectively make your presence felt in your quarter-final and final round matches to help your team succeed. Even without counting your poison skill you showed a tactical mastery with your Shintenshin no Jutsu, mind-body switch jutsu, that any Yamanaka would have been fooled by. Unforeseen circumstances kept that from ending the entire final round altogether. In all honesty it was a narrow decision, but you have been promoted as well my dear. Ino let out a whoop before realizing that she had been the only one to have an outburst. Even Naruto didn't do anything embarrassing. When Hiruzen began to laugh and held up her vest she quickly walked forward and received it with a red face, mumbling a "thank you Hokage-sama," before keeping her head down to avoid anyone looking at her. Nara Shikamaru. Shikamaru met Hiruzen's business-like look with a lazy one, just short of looking like his eyes were about to shut before the man began to speak. While some would call it cowardice, the major sticking point of your result is what you did in the quarter-final round against Rock Lee. It was the single most underhanded, conniving, abhorrent action many of the judges had ever seen done in an exam meant to test genin. Everyone figured he was about to be shut down by the Hokage at that point, but it was not to be. It was a magnificent move. Fighting that battle would have done absolutely nothing for you but put you in a wheelchair. Not only that, but you turned the tables with merely surrendering by forcing your opponent to thoroughly exhaust himself without ever losing a thing other than a fight that you couldn't win in the first place. Number 1 team at hiding, running away, and stalling. Asuma, Shikamaru, Ino, and Naruto all thought at the same time with deadpan looks on their faces. Aside from that one instance that more or less secured the decision for you. Hiruzen continued, your ability to con any opponent into falling prey to your shadow, even when they had already seen it, had already been caught by it in some cases, and knew full well what was coming, is incredible. Each round you found a new way to use the same jutsu without fail. It simply cannot be ignored and overlooked. You are promoted. Seeing the vest appear over the top of Hiruzen's desk, Shikamaru looked at it long and hard without walking forward, finally choosing to speak. Do I have to? Asuma, Ino, and Naruto all slapped him across the back of the head, urging him forward. Troublesome, ugh, fine. Thank you Hokage-sama. Team 10 moved back into the original lineup, all marveling at their flak jackets, with the exception of Shikamaru, who looked at his and merely sighed in resignation to his fate. Asuma merely walked over to the door of the office and held out his hand with a satisfied look on his face. Please pay on the way out if you don't mind, he said to Kurenai, Guy, and Kakashi. Oh man. Naruto said with a huge grin on his face as all of the genin walked down the street away from the Hokage mansion. He was feeling on his flak jacket as if it were made of some miracle material that was made from dreams. This thing can probably stop a kunai to the belly. Quick, someone punch me in the stomach dash. Oof. Naruto was doubled over with Kiba's fist buried in his stomach. Lee, Chuji, even Sasuke, and Neji looked dejected that they didn't beat him to it since they all had their fists raised as well. Thanks. Naruto wheezed. You're welcome. Kiba said, getting some dark satisfaction out of that. Hey, he didn't get promoted. It wasn't like he had to be the bigger man or anything when he was still a genin, and Naruto asked him to do it. Did that hurt? Nah. Naruto said, sucking in a deep breath to keep his knees from shaking. Not even a little. Sakura shook her head and looked at the flak jacket that Sasuke was carrying. I can't believe you guys got promotions. That's so cool. When was the last time anyone our age got promoted? She wondered how cool Sasuke would look once he put his flak jacket on. Naruto necessarily didn't make it look bad at all, so Sasuke would probably wear it like the devil himself once he chose to. It's not really that rare. Tenten said wryly with a grin on her face as she, too much like Naruto, was taking the moment to break her flak jacket in early. People younger than us got promoted before, but it's still so cool. She spared a look towards her teammates, suddenly feeling like a jerk for being the only one of them to get promoted. She still couldn't believe it. Sorry you guys. Lee noticed the shift in her mood and gave her a thumbs up. There is nothing to apologize for, Tenten. I will simply have to work twice as hard next time to ensure my own success. And Neji as well. I'm certain that he feels the same. A tense nod only came from Neji, nothing more nothing less. Do you expect me to resent you for doing your best, Tenten? I am not nearly that petty. Like Lee says, there is always the next time. He then decided to break off from the group and head home. I believe I'll go and get some rest now. If I see Hayashi-sama I will inform him that you are still out, Hinata-sama. Neji said, still not sparing the girl he was just speaking to a glance as he walked away. The others were slightly put off by how he just left like that when it was a time to talk amongst themselves about the crazy stuff that had just happened to them over the past month or so. It was standard procedure that everyone that somehow shared a ridiculous life experience would then proceed to talk about said experience with those they had experienced it with, complete with gratuitous embellishments everyone knew were lies that would eventually be forgotten as false and would just become a part of the actual story as the annals of time erode the tale that would then be told hundreds of times for the rest of their lives. Neji obviously had no desire to partake in standard procedure. The wind momentarily taken out of their sails by Neji's abrupt departure, Choji tried picking things back up. I can't believe Ino, Shikamaru, and Naruto all got promoted though. All three of you? That's crazy. Yes Choji, it's crazy. Shikamaru said, not seeming too stoked at all to be in his current situation. It's crazy terrible. Now the safety net that is Asuma-sensei is gone. He doesn't have to be our Jonin leader anymore. We're not his genin anymore, we're Chunin now. That thought gave Ino and Naruto pause. They had never even thought about that, and we could be split up and stuck on other teams now, so we might not even get to have each other anymore. We're supposed to be able to lead teams now. It's not really going to be that easy to split us up, right? Ino asked, actually expecting an answer from someone. And no one really had the answer. Come on, they can't do that. We all got promoted at the same time, why can't we still be a team? It's the only reason we got this far. She honestly loved being on that team. She wouldn't have traded it for anything. If she wasn't on that team, would she have learned the techniques that she did? Would she have even learned what she did about Naruto, the thing with his clan, and the more important thing about the Kyuubi within him? Would she have accepted it so readily? Would she even have gotten promoted if she hadn't been with them? There's no way they can just cut us apart like that. Ino said, getting angrier at the thought of it. Doesn't any of that crap we did mean anything? What was the point of doing all of that stuff for each other, just to say goodbye? She wasn't going to accept that lying down if that was indeed the case. Fuck that. And with that, Ino stomped off on her own, trying not to wipe her eyes at the thought of it. It may have been impulsive, but she didn't care, even if it was paranoia on the cynical one Shikamaru's part that formed the theory. It was upsetting enough to bring tears to her eyes, and no one was going to see her cry. They all watched Ino stomp away before Naruto spoke up. Hey, they really can't do that, can they? Asuma not being their sensei anymore, he understood. He damn sure didn't like it and he would fight that, but he understood that they couldn't have a Jonin locked down to them forever. He had to get on with his own career eventually and couldn't stick around until they were Jonin too. But splitting the team up? That was terrible. He just got them and he'd have to lose them like that. And all of a sudden thinking about that didn't make Naruto feel so ecstatic to be a Chunin anymore. I don't know what they can do, dope, but I don't think they'll do that. Sasuke said, contemplating something similar. Were they going to yank him from Team 7 because they were still genin? Even Tenten was thinking about it at that point. As much as Sasuke would never admit it out loud, he had grown accustomed to seeing them every day. It was something he could count on for better or worse. It was a sense of normality. Something comfortable. I just don't know. I guess we'll see. They might pick him off of Team 7 and he doubted they would even do that, but there was no feasible reason to break up Team 10 whatsoever. The reassurance of the safety of the team brought his hope up a bit, but the mood was thoroughly killed. Naruto shoved his hands into his pants pockets and started to wander home. I'll see you guys later, alright? I need to go home and get my head bitten off by my landlord for not having the rent for so long. Maybe I can work something out. Shikamaru palmed his face and sighed, great, me and my big mouth. Way to kill the feel-good Shikamaru. I don't think teams get broken up like that. They all turned to see Kabuto standing there with a small smile on his face. I mean, your entire cell advanced. There's no way a combination like that will get broken up. I think your team is fine, Shikamaru. And I believe they'll keep the ones of you that got promoted on your teams as well, so that you can get some experience leading a team you know something about. They might make it so that you have to do missions with others so you get more experience, but you should be fine really. Sakura felt relief at hearing that Sasuke wouldn't be plucked off of the team just like that. Not now, when she was actually starting to improve herself. Thank you for that, Kabuto-san, but what are you doing here? What would a 19-year-old genin want to do hanging out with them? Well, Kabuto seemed rather embarrassed at first before looking down sadly. Aside from my team, I don't really have any close friends. They either got promoted or quit or just fell out of contact. I like you guys, and if it's not too lame, I was just wondering if I wouldn't be a third wheel or anything, well, technically a 10th wheel in this case. The guy had just watched his team die. Even if it was rather weird hearing that he didn't have a problem with 12 and 13-year-olds, there was still something rather sad about the lack of promotion for him and the loss of his entire squad. Pity was what they felt for the long-standing genin. We do not have a problem at all, Kabuto-san. Lee said, giving him an exuberant pat on the back. Feel free to join our most youthful tales of the Chunin exam. Kabuto's face seemed to light up, brightening his previously dour mood. Thank you. And I've got a few on that front. I've done I 8 times after all, he said as he fell in step with the group, looking for a place to eat at Chuji's behest and their agreement. Eventually Kabuto made his way close enough to Sasuke to speak. So Chunin is a rookie, huh? It's supposed to get more dangerous from here on out, you know. Sasuke spared him a glance before looking at his flak jacket and shrugging almost unnoticeably. I know. But I'm sure I can handle it. I'm sure you can too, Sasuke-kun. Kabuto said with a satisfied feeling in the back of his mind. Everyone's watching you now. Naruto wound up walking home after 15 minutes of being greeted by almost everyone that got close to him on the street. Even the people that didn't talk to him were looking at him, something they had gone out of their way to not do before then. When they did look at him before then, it was just to glare or sneer at him. His stomach fluttered all the way home. The people on the street had never seemed so nice before. As he arrived to his home, though, he saw Jiraiya standing in front of his door speaking to a man dressed in a very ornate and well-to-do looking kimono. So you will inform him of what I told you, will you not, Jiraiya-sama? Yeah, of course. Jiraiya said, waving off the concern of the high-class looking man. When I see the kid, he'll know right then and there. The message is secure with me. Now, didn't you have somewhere else to be before sundown? Oh yes. The noble-looking man said before hurriedly walking away. I still have to deliver this message as well to someone else. The boy's teammate, as a matter of fact. The man finished with a foppish laugh. Thank you for the assistance, Jiraiya-sama. As he left and went down the stairs, he passed a large potted plant that he didn't remember being there, but he was too busy to really pay attention or care. Once he left though, the plant turned into Naruto in a puff of smoke as he walked his way to his apartment door where Jiraiya was. What are you doing here, Ero-sensei, and what was that weird guy here to say to me? Jiraiya planted a hand on Naruto's shoulder as he looked down at him. We'll get to that later, but for now, how about you and I celebrate your new promotion, kid? You definitely did me proud out there for certain. How about I take you to grab some ramen before the sun goes down? Naruto still wanted to know what the strange man had come to his house for, but for now he hadn't partaken in any ramen for over a week and a half, and he was ready for the biggest bowl they had, or 3, yeah, sure. Absolutely, Ero-sensei, let's go. Hey, you're not a genius. Who cares? Read this and you won't suck at Funjutsu, by Jiraiya. Mind without borders. Stimulate your mind. Expand your horizons. Half of sealing is using your imagination to think of something new you can bind away just for kicks. There's nothing wrong with trying new things. Do whatever you'd like as long as it doesn't hurt anyone, and even if it does, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission, so grow some stones and jump in the deep end once in a while. You might be pleasantly surprised by what the world can bring you. Or then maybe you might not be, and you might see that the world is an ugly place where terrible things happen to undeserving people for no relatively proper reason at all. Either way, you need to see and realize that too. Just reading about it won't do a thing for you, so don't sit there and expect me to put it into legible words for you to attempt to grasp. The world is bigger than what you see every day at the edge of your village. You know that, but if you are young then you really don't know that. You think you know, but you don't really know. Get yourself some experience and a promotion and you'll see soon. Trust me. And if there's a war going on where you are when you read this, you probably already know this and you don't need me to tell you a thing. Either way, the more you see and do, the further you'll grow. There's a joke in there somewhere, but damn it, I don't feel like going there today. And yes, that's what she said. I couldn't help myself. I'm very disappointed with my endurance. And that's also what she said. Chapter 33, Sober Up. For some reason Shikamaru and Naruto had managed to make it to Team 10's training ground the day after their promotions and were both sitting under the large tree that marked the middle of their field. As they sat in the shade, they both seemed to be basking in the silence with fully aware, yet stunned looks on their faces. Both boys were wearing their flak jackets over their regular clothes and were patiently waiting for their third teammate and their sensei to arrive so that they could be given their marching orders for the coming days. They were in such a haze that they didn't seem to know or care that not only did they not have a meeting that day, they had been there for an hour already, having arrived too early that morning even if they had been scheduled to meet. Apparently genin habits died hard. Chunin weren't required to meet every day like that. Just another sign that their heads were too far away to deal with the protocol of their new military stations. Eventually Shikamaru cleared his throat and decided to speak up, as it was clear both he and Naruto were in the same state of mind over something that was probably similar. So, I'm guessing that the guy showed up at your place too and told you what he told me. Naruto nodded without saying anything. Yep. I thought so when he told me that you'd been asked to. Ero-sensei told me. Naruto said, taking a gulp that could be seen as a sign of nerves. You're talking about that noble-looking guy that didn't seem to be from around here. Shikamaru nodded in response to confirming the identity of the person that had relayed the message of the offer to him. Yeah, so what are you going to do? Naruto concluded curiously. Shikamaru's eyes turned to Naruto after hearing the blonde newly minted Chunin's question. What am I going to do? What are you going to do? He asked in return, not answering the question himself. It didn't exactly come off like it was supposed to be a package deal. They want both of us, but we don't both have to go. Are you telling me to go, or are you saying that you want to go for yourself and you want me to stay? Naruto wondered, squinting his eyes at Shikamaru in confusion over what his point was supposed to be. I'm not telling you to do anything, knucklehead. Shikamaru said in exasperation, I'm just saying that if you want to go you can go without me. Don't let me hold you back. They'd probably get sick of my attitude in a hurry anyway. He saw Naruto open his mouth to probably start an argument and cut that off at the pass before he could even get going. We can talk about it later. We're supposed to have plenty of time to give our decisions anyway, right? Naruto shut his trap and begrudgingly nodded before setting his back and his head against the tree to keep waiting for Ino and Asuma. He knew that Jiraiya would never spring for a meal of his without a reason behind it. Of course there would have been an issue other than a celebration when they went out to eat the previous night. There wouldn't have been any other way it could have happened. Flashback, last night, Ichiraku ramen stand. From the amount of food steadily being shoved down Naruto's mouth, Jiraiya was grateful that the kids' meal would be on the house because he wasn't sure he could pay that much without writing a check. I was scared to death when they showed the end of the exam broadcast. Ayame said as she placed another bowl in front of Naruto that he immediately began to put away. No one knew what happened when all of that sand started to billow up. Everyone thought something bad had happened. But it's good to see that you're fine and that you're as hungry as ever. Jiraiya just shook his head at the sight of Naruto gorging himself on his favorite food before turning to the pretty young ramen waitress with a grin. Well, it was never in doubt for a second that he'd get out all right. After all, he's the disciple of one of the greatest men to ever live. I'm referring to myself, of course. I taught him everything good that he pulled out in the tournament. He leaned on the counter closer to Ayame. Of course I'd be more than glad to explain in depth the nuances of my teachings to you personally. Naruto glared at Jiraiya out of the corner of his eye as he continued to eat, but said nothing, not feeling the need to get personally involved. If he was planning on hitting on Ayame, he would have another thing coming. He was around 30 years too late to try that and succeed, and he was in the wrong place to try it. And right on cue, the loud sound of chopping sounded out from behind them, where Teiuchi was cutting up more fresh ingredients, trying to purposefully be loud to attract attention. I think I speak for everyone here when I say thanks for taking an interest, Jiraiya-sama. Teiuchi said, turning around with a deceptive smile on his face as he continued to chop loudly. I'd personally be happy to hear about how you trained Naruto. Why don't we go in the back with all of my other sharp cutlery so we can discuss that and other things as well? Jiraiya's face paled and he leaned away from Ayame. I'd rather not, thanks. Legendary status or not, he didn't necessarily like his odds in that instance. He then decided to change the subject to restore some goodwill. So why are you letting the brat eat you out of house and home for free again? He said, pointing a thumb over at Naruto, who was still steadily eating while getting patted on his head like a good boy by Ayame. Teiuchi chuckled and went back to work, because he pretty much paid for himself in advance with all of the money I made off of him betting during the fights. He then backtracked a bit once he could feel Ayame's glare on his back. Oh, and because he did such a good job and got himself promoted. How could I forget that part? Yes, he did. Ayame said in an encouraging manner. He did very well. He went kind of overboard with all of the explosions, but those were pretty cool to see, I admit. Naruto stopped eating once his explosive tags were brought up and sighed, I completely depleted my stores during the exams. I need to buy more sealing paper if I'm going to make that many again when I get some free time. His hunger sated for the time being, Naruto pat his belly and turned in his stool towards Jiraiya. So Ero-sensei, what was that guy at my apartment looking at me for? He wasn't the landlord's collector looking for me, was he? Because I told that guy when I got back that I'd pay the second I dash. No, he wasn't some debt collector, Naruto. Jiraiya said with a roll of his eyes. Honestly, who freaked out over debt collectors after dealing with a pair of Jinchuriki in back-to-back fights? Taking a moment to finish off the broth left in his bowl, Naruto put it down and sighed contentedly before turning his attention back to Jiraiya. Well then, who was it? A grin slowly started to spread over his face as his imagination began to run wild. It was probably someone that wanted an autograph or something. Yeah, he thought I was so awesome, and he can see a future Hokage in the making, so why wouldn't he try to get an autograph before my signature's hot? Naruto then tapped his chin in thought, maybe I should start working on a signature. Jiraiya had to take a second to wonder if this was what it was like to talk to himself sometimes before shaking that thought aside. No kid, he didn't want an autograph. That guy was from the daimyo. That got everyone's attention as Ayame and Teiuchi froze where they were to listen in carefully. Sure, it might not have been their business, but that was just one of the side perks of owning a place for the public to come and eat. Besides, they had some stock in that kid and his well-being was relatively significant to them. The daimyo. Naruto said, trying to roll the thought around in his head. Wait, that's like the guy that runs the rest of the country, isn't it? What does some bigwig like that want with me? He asked curiously. Congratulations. Jiraiya said, giving Naruto a hearty slap on the back. You've finally got people realizing that you don't suck. A beaming grin found its way to Naruto's face. Even all the way to the ramen stand, people had been congratulating him over his performance alongside his team during the televised exams. In fact, you've got the daimyo thinking that you're quite good and that your teammate is quite smart and skilled. Naruto at this point was nodding as if he knew what Jiraiya was going to say, and now he wants to hire Team 10 for some cool job that only the best can handle. Maybe he'd finally get that mission to save a princess or take down an enemy fortress the way he always wanted and thought he'd get in spades as a ninja. Sort of. Jiraiya said, rubbing the back of his spiky white mane as he thought of possible ways that Naruto would take the coming information. He wants to hire you and Shikamaru. Just you two though. And it's not for your regular everyday mission. He wants you as his personal protectors. Bodyguards, if you will. Naruto just sat there and turned back towards the counter, looking down in thought as if he wanted to say something. Why? He wasn't even 13 yet. He would be in a month or so, but why would the daimyo want a pair of kids as bodyguards? It was just weird to him. Doesn't he have like a whole group of soldiers and stuff to do that for him? A chuckle left Jiraiya. One genin is worth at least 20 average armed men when used correctly. And yes, nobles like that have their own forces, but they also seek out the very best for more direct reasons. He wants to set up a contract with you and Shikamaru to enlist your services as his shinobi for a certain length of time. I believe the very best of them are called the 12 Guardian Ninja, or they were. Naruto said with a raised eyebrow. Jiraiya shrugged. If I were you, I'd talk to Sarutobi-sensei's kid Asuma about it. He could tell you more than I ever could about this whole thing. But yeah, the daimyo wants you as one of his guards. That's what the guy at your apartment was there to tell you. And you've got 6 months to come up with an answer. He isn't expecting you to just pick up and leave at the drop of a hat. That would be totally unreasonable. This is a big decision. How is it a big decision? Naruto asked, not seeing what the big deal was. It was a bodyguard job. A ninja was supposed to do bodyguard work. It was kind of their thing. I'll just accept the mission, watch over him for whatever he's going to do, get paid tons of money, and come on home. Easy. The contract lasts years, kid. That got Naruto to pause in his good mood and confident state. Jiraiya looked at him with a serious expression as he proceeded to explain, yeah. You're not just popping away for a quick mission that'll take a week or a month even, you're going away for years. You'll be a live-in guard, basically shifting your services from Konoha to the daimyo directly instead of just by proxy. Naruto just stared at Jiraiya with a slack-jawed expression before he finally found his voice. Why the hell would I want to do something like that? I don't want to leave for real. Shaking his head, Jiraiya frowned at Naruto due to his outburst. You idiot, it's not anything like that. What do you think, you'd be a deserter or something? Your sensei did the same thing. Tsunade travels around indefinitely. Hell, even I spent more than my fair share of years away from the village before I was even powerful or famous. Grumbling at being called an idiot, Naruto glared slightly at Jiraiya. So? What does any of that have to do with me? I know you usually don't care what I think unless I'm teaching you how to fight, but I think it would be good for you. Jiraiya said confidently, it would be a chance for you to go somewhere new, learn new skills, build up a body of work elsewhere. It would be great for a kid like you. And if you set yourself apart from the pack the way you should and the daimyo likes you, then that'll be good enough for you to get his backing once you actually start going for Hokage when you get older. He really meant that last part. For some reason the daimyo absolutely adored Jiraiya due to their meetings in the past, and he still wished that Jiraiya had taken the seat of Hokage. Apparently he still brought it up to Hiruzen since his sensei would tell him about it often. Jiraiya had no desire to become Hokage, however, so it was sadly just wasted breath on him. Naruto's face showed a bunch of conflicting emotions over the matter though. But I can't just leave. Everyone needs me here. Who? Jiraiya said, legitimately questioning him on the matter. I know you've got friends and I know that you're really excited about being a new Chunin, but who needs you here? Konoha won't just fall apart if you're not here, kid. The friends you have aren't just going to keel over and kick the bucket because you're gone for a while. Mine didn't, and we were fighting a war at the time the second time I left. That's a really arrogant attitude to have, thinking that the thousands of shinobi here can't hold down the fort, but a rookie genin turned Chunin is so integral to the foundation of everything. Naruto looked down and continued to think. Was it really that wrong to think that way? He did have to admit that thinking of himself being more useful in the grand scheme of things than say Asuma or Kakashi was pretty unfounded, but he liked Team 10, he liked the other Konoha genin he had spent time with and fought during the exams and even before then. He liked the attention he was getting for winning the exams. He didn't want to leave now that things were looking up so much. Just think about it. Jiraiya said in conclusion on his point to not just overlook and cast away the offer. You're young. Before you actually get to a point where you are a vital part of Konoha's military, you should go out and get some different experiences. It'd do you a world of good. End flashback. Naruto sat cross-legged and stared at the ground as he furrowed his brow. Well, what do you think we should do, Shika? I mean, it sounds cool, and who knows how strong we might get training with the best that are supposed to be able to guard the daimyo. It certainly couldn't hurt to spend some time away if that were the case. I don't really care a bit about the whole getting stronger thing. Shikamaru admitted with a hapless shrug. I'm trying to shoot for average, remember? This is pretty much as far as I want to go in my career, in case you forgot. Maybe Jonin, but I'm not going to push it. If it happens it happens. I'm not really shooting for the stars here, I'll leave that to you. Naruto just gave him a deadpan stare that was saying more or less, my ass, you'll be getting off easy as long as I'm around. The blonde Chunin jumped up and poked him in the head as Shikamaru tried to ignore him. You don't want to do it just because you're a lazy ass? What about the adventure or the challenge? Come on. Swatting Naruto's hand away, Shikamaru got up and walked out from beneath the tree to lie down in the grass and stare at the clouds. With the stress of the exams, you've obviously forgotten who you're talking to, so allow me to refresh your memory in the following manner. And with that he shut his eyes and didn't move again. Shikamaru, Naruto said, getting no response. He frowned and poked at Shikamaru with his foot. Get up, Shikamaru, I know you're not asleep, that was only like 15 seconds. Still, Shikamaru didn't move an inch. Damn it, Shikamaru, like it or not we are in the middle of a life-changing decision-making situation right now. Wake your ass up and help me solve the problem. Shikamaru cracked open one eye before turning over on his side away from Naruto with a grunt. A growl came from Naruto's throat before he threw his hands up and walked away. Fine. Sleep all damn day and see if I care. But if I have to find you again later and you're still here. He let the threat hang in the air as he walked away from the field. That was just fine with Shikamaru though. He'd just clear out in an hour or two and go home to ditch Naruto and his vengeful wrath, of which in his heart of hearts he knew there was no escape from in the end. Yep, running away from your problems and decisions until it was absolutely necessary was the manly way to handle things. Procrastination was the fuel that powered society. He would have thought that Naruto would have learned that by now after 6 months of hanging out with him. Hokage Tower. Asuma stood in front of his father's desk staring wide-eyed at the man. You're serious? Wow. I don't know if that's ironic or what. I mean, what are the chances, Dad? Hiruzen didn't know whether to chuckle or what, because it wasn't lost on him at all. If you're wondering, he asked whether you were coming back as well. The daimyo wants me back. Asuma said with a quirk at his lips. Well, that's unfortunate, because he's not getting me back. The man had a fair shake at getting Shikamaru, Naruto, or both of them, though if they decided to accept the offer either way though, I don't think I should tell them what to do in this instance. You saw fit to promote them, so they should be able to make their own decisions. I'm technically not their sensei anymore, you know. In response, Hiruzen shrugged. Okay, if that's how you feel, I'll reassign you right away. You did so well with this team that maybe I'll set you up with a new Genin squad once the next batch graduates. He smirked when he saw Asuma glare heatedly at him. That's what I thought. He leaned back in his chair and placed his pipe at his lips to light. You're just as attached to those kids as I happen to be to my own team. No matter how far they go or how good they get, you're going to feel some kind of responsibility over them. Asuma scoffed at such a sappy thought. I just want to make sure they've got all of their stuff in order, that's all. They're still all just kids. The training wheels can't just come off without warning. I'll still be around for them to get advice from, of course. He then turned away from Hiruzen and grabbed his own cigarette to light once he saw that his old man was smoking indoors. Besides, I still owe Shikamaru a beatdown at shogi that's been a long time coming. A nod that seemed rather happy came from Hiruzen. I'm glad you came back, Asuma, I just want you to know that. I really think that this team was what you needed to find something to take stock in the village again, aside from Kurenai, of course. Asuma turned back around to Hiruzen with a frown on his face. You, the other Jonin, even one of my brats are always referencing Kurenai. When have I ever given any kind of sign that we were in any sort of relationship, and how would you even have known? When would you have found the time to pick up any gossip? Hiruzen then wordlessly pulled up his crystal ball. Oh, duh. Wait, you really watch me in that thing? Another shrug came from the old man. Well, the fact that you do a terrible job of hiding said relationship notwithstanding, you are my son, and it gets very boring in here from time to time. Just be grateful I'm not Jiraiya, and we'll leave it at that. Both Asuma and Hiruzen shivered and nodded, not bringing up the topic again. Konoha Archive Library. I really don't get why you're bringing this to me, Uzumaki-kun. Shiho said as Naruto followed her around the building. He had arrived a little earlier. She had given him a hearty congratulations on a job well done in the exams. He had of course gleefully accepted, and then he brought the issue of his offer from the daimyo. It had clearly stunned her into silence, but other than saying that it was a big deal and an honor, she didn't know what else to add. From that point forward he had constantly been bringing it up while she was supposed to be busy at work making her rounds and making sure that everything was in order. And it did actually beg the question from her, why was he bringing the question to her? Wasn't it supposed to be his decision? Come on, Shiho-chan. Naruto tried to plead while keeping his voice down. He didn't want to get her in trouble with her boss or catch a tongue lashing of his own from the man. You're like the smartest person I know, you should have some kind of advice for me. Not like this. She argued back, making sure that every book and file on the shelves were in place with her checklist. Uzumaki-kun, I spend upwards of 7 hours a day in here surrounded by concrete information of all sorts. Do you want me to give you basic specs of a new region you're about to get a mission into? I can do that. Do you want some historical perspective? I can do that too. Do you want advice on basic combat theory? You know I can give you that. But what do I know about personal dilemmas, especially a dilemma that isn't my own? Naruto felt like pulling his hair out at this point. You're just like Shikamaru, all that smartness for no reason. He then found the clipboard she was holding slammed on the top of his head. Didn't hurt. Shiho pulled the clipboard off of his head with a huff. Of course she couldn't hit him hard enough to hurt him, the noise it would make would get them in trouble. Oh, that, and she would never hit hard enough to hurt a friend. If you want to get logical over it, then sit down and make a list about what you can get out of either staying or going, but make sure you have all of the facts first. If one side outweighs the other in benefits, then take it. Other than that I don't know what to tell you. Either that or ask Shikamaru-kun. That bum is totally useless. Naruto grumbled, eyes scanning the books they were walking through in passing. Due to this he didn't notice Shiho's momentary glare cast upon him for his remark about Shikamaru. I asked him what he was going to do about his own offer earlier and he just rolled over and went to sleep. That was more or less Shikamaru's way of saying that he'd deal with it when it was actually a problem, or it was his subtle way of telling Naruto to fuck off. Either way, none of that was helpful at the moment. But hearing about Shikamaru's offer got Shiho to freeze in the middle of what she was doing to face Naruto. Wait, did you just say that Shikamaru-kun got an offer too? She said, eyes seeming to try boring into Naruto's head for the answer. It actually forced Naruto himself to back up a step for comfort and personal space purposes that were currently being violated by Shiho's close proximity. Yeah. Both me and him got the same deal to sign a contract to work for the daimyo for I think a few years. I thought I said that at the beginning. No, you didn't. Shush. The unanimous sign to stifle all loud conversation and actions got both youngsters' attentions. Naruto fanned his arms out in a belligerent manner as he whispered harshly, "Be quiet, Shiho-chan, you're being too loud." He then found himself forcefully jerked face to face with the bespectacled blonde girl by the collar of his brand spanking new flak jacket. Meh. What do you mean Shikamaru-kun got the same offer? Shiho asked sharply, does that mean he's going? Her tone seemed to be telling Naruto to answer correctly or suffer. Weird. She had never done that before, not even once. And only now Shiho could be counted as being just like every other girl or woman Naruto had ever met. The feeling of death seemed to be magnified by Shiho's glasses, and Naruto didn't think that said girl could elicit such a feeling from him. She couldn't even fight, so what was he scared of? He was asking himself that question, and yet he still felt a sense of foreboding that he was not about to try testing by being a smart ass. It was clearly not going to fly there and then. I don't know, I swear to Kami. Naruto squeaked out in a high-pitched manner. He so wanted to pull his goggles that sat on his forehead down over his eyes to avoid eye contact, but it was like he was paralyzed. Was this a jutsu? Did all girls learn it somehow? That was so unfair. I told you I asked him this morning and he totally blew me off. Shiho sighed desperately and let Naruto go, allowing him to skulk back against a bookshelf with a thump to get away from her. Well, that's no good. Her eyes then sharpened up on Naruto again. But the second you find out if he's going or not, you'd better tell me in a hurry, understood? You'd better tell me. I'll tell you whatever you want, just don't kill me. Naruto said fervently to try and calm Shiho down. Whatever set her off, he didn't feel like reaping the benefits of such an attitude. And she was such a nice girl too. Shiho wordlessly jerked her head towards the direction of the exit, and Naruto took that as a sign to get the hell out of Dodge, as he did just that without a second thought. A rather desperate sigh came from the cryptography apprentice as she went back to her odd job that had been assigned to her. That was certainly an embarrassing lack of composure. Luckily Naruto wasn't necessarily the kind of guy to look too far into behavioral patterns, or he would have a chance to accidentally blow her shot with Shikamaru in the future. Speaking of the future, if he left, that would make things harder for her to get the guts to put herself out there after he would probably be exposed to women that were far better looking than her. But if he stayed, then she'd just get used to him being around and would keep procrastinating on the whole thing until it was too late to really try to catch his attention. Wow, when she put it like that, she could kind of see why Naruto was wrestling with his decision. Team 10, Training Field. Shikamaru was awakened to a darkened silhouette standing over him, blocking the sky from his view, and he almost panicked, his first thought being that it was Naruto there to make good on his promise to make Shikamaru pay if he returned to the field and caught him still sleeping there. Before Shikamaru could begin to formulate a way to talk himself out of immediate trouble, or at least to buy himself enough time to run for dear life back to a well-populated area, the voice of the person standing over him spoke. "Geez Shikamaru, I thought you had the day off." Shikamaru blinked as the voice, sounding similar to his in the nonchalant content only with a more grizzled tint to it, continued to talk to him. "Why are you all the way out here? Stupid kid, making me run around all over town just to find you, troublesome." "Dad." Shikamaru sat up and looked up to see his father Shikaku standing there just looking at him. The younger Nara rubbed his eyes and squinted at the light in them. "Why are you looking for me?" Shikaku reached down and jerked his son up to his feet with surprising strength, at least as far as Shikamaru was concerned. Shikaku watched him stumble about jelly-legged for a moment before continuing to talk. "Well, I meant to tell you this last night, but what with the promotion, the daimyo's message being dropped off, and your mother preening over you, I didn't get a moment to say this for myself." He cleared his throat and set a hand on Shikamaru's shoulder. "You're a Chunin now dash dot." "Oh come on," Shikamaru said, not really wanting to hear the whole rite of passage speech. "It was just so lame. Come on Dad. I know already. Responsibility, leadership, all of that crap. Don't tell me you came all the way out here to waste time like that. Shouldn't you be overlooking the deer caretaking right now?" Shikaku waved Shikamaru off, and Sui's got the deer covered. "And I wasn't going to give you that shit speech. I was going to say that you're a Chunin now, so it's time to teach you some more clan techniques. You did great during the exams and you never even bothered me to teach you anything." He narrowed his eyes somewhat in suspicion. "Funny thing that asking you would have been too troublesome," Shikamaru said, rubbing the back of his neck and yawning. "I had what I needed already, I just had to find ways to use it." Shikaku just gave Shikamaru a deadpan stare. Go ahead and use that excuse. You just didn't want to put in the actual work to learn a new jutsu. Well, you're not ducking it anymore. Get ready to work." A sigh came from Shikamaru as he followed his father back to their compound. "Maybe I should take that offer to leave for a bit after all. It would get my troublesome family off my back for sure. Even Mom wouldn't be able to bust my chops after I came back from it. But then what if the daimyo had him doing even more irksome things as work? Wait, wasn't today supposed to be his day off?" Ino's fingertips drummed off of the countertop of her family's flower shop crossly as she waited on customers to peruse the store's selections and make decisions. She knew she was supposed to have a chipper attitude when working in the store, but her own thoughts over yesterday were still keeping her in a less than good mood. Her dad said that as a Chunin she could be assigned to different teams at any time, but that wasn't necessarily what she wanted to hear. He hadn't even really gotten the chance to even say that as new Chunin she, Shikamaru, and Naruto would more than likely be allowed to stick together to cut their teeth on progressively harder missions until they found their groove. Ino let out a sigh as a chime signified that someone else had entered her shop. "Hello and welcome to Yamanaka Flowers." She stopped with her greeting when she noticed exactly who it was that entered. "Oh, what are you doing here for it?" she said rather vacantly despite the insult. "Wow," Sakura said dryly as she walked in, looking at the abundance of flowers while moving towards the counter to talk to Ino. "If you're going to call me that, you could at least put some effort behind it. That didn't even seem like you meant it." That managed to get a small smile out of Ino. "So how's life as a Chunin treating you?" Ino's lips quirked slightly. Just great. Can't you see how dangerous and elite I am? It's like night and day from yesterday when I was just a genin. She said sarcastically before sighing, I don't even know how I feel about it. My head is just swimming right now. If she had to admit it, Ino didn't feel very much like a chunin. After the high of actually getting promoted wore off, she felt kind of lost. She could technically lead missions now? It was difficult to wrap her head around. More than ever she felt like she needed to be with her actual team to succeed. She was going to have to go to her dad and demand a new jutsu this time, not take no for an answer whatsoever. There was no more reason not to teach her another clan technique. She had done what she could with what she had thus far, and it was enough to get her through the chunin exams. That had to be worth something. You know, we never got to have our fight during the exams. Sakura remarked offhandedly, though it was clear that it was said to get Ino's full attention, which it did. It's kind of a shame if you ask me. Ino smirked and sat her elbows on the counter as her chin rested in her hands. It's a shame that you didn't catch a beat down from little old me. Wow, Sakura, I thought you would have been happy with not getting a hospital visit. The topic shifted on that note. So how are Chuji and Sasuke? Better. Sakura said, Chuji's resting at home for the week, and so is Sasuke-kun since Kakashi-sensei gave us the week off. Knowing Sasuke-kun though, he's probably training or something right now instead. We had a short meeting today. A frown came to Ino's face. Asuma-sensei didn't tell us to meet. I don't think we were supposed to do anything today. Goldie-kun would have come to get me if I was a no-show for something. Or maybe they are breaking us up and they're just taking the time to reshuffle the teams. Sakura shook her head and placed her hands on her hips. Are you really going to be this negative? All you've done since yesterday is whine over your team that might be getting broken up. I didn't know you needed Shikamaru and Naruto as a crutch to do anything. Ino slammed her hands on the counter in front of her. That's not why it matters. Her outburst got the attention of everyone else in the store, but a glare from the diminutive blonde girl got them to mind their own business once again, allowing her to focus solely on Sakura. They're my friends. We're not Ino Shikacho like my dad and his friends are. We don't have that kind of thing going for us to stay together. Palming her forehead, Sakura argued her case again. Even if you guys are chunin, you're still kids too. And we've only been out of the academy for like 6 months. There's a curve, there has to be. You're getting worried over nothing. But wouldn't you rather the teams get reshuffled? I mean, then you'd have another chance to be on a team with Sasuke-kun possibly. I don't really care about that. Ino mumbled as she sank her head down on the counter. Doing so forced her to miss the shocked look that appeared on Sakura's face, but she did not miss her follow-up comment. You don't care? It's Sasuke-kun. And if it had been months ago, then it probably would have mattered to Ino, but now it really didn't. Not one bit. And she was okay with that. I guess you can say that there are more important things than just being on the team with a hot guy. I mean, I haven't been trusting Sasuke with my life for the last 3 months. I didn't spend every day for the last few months with him. I don't know him well enough the way all of the girls in the academy thought they did. As a matter of fact, I know Goldie-kun more than I thought I knew Sasuke. Did you know he actually does have a clan? Still though, Sakura was stunned at the thought of one of the girls that had been enamored with Sasuke in school losing interest in him. Even the other girls that they hadn't had any contact with since graduation were still into him. As a matter of fact, Sasuke arrived home after the exams to find his front door blocked off by get-well-soon gifts and other assorted gifts from said girls. It was kind of creepy actually. And Ino was neck and neck with Sakura as being one of Sasuke's most vocal admirers back in the day. Maybe she did have a chunin's mindset after all. In fact, she was so not worried about Sasuke that she didn't even let Sakura dwell on the topic any longer. You know what? Ino said with a bit of enthusiasm, even if they do wind up breaking us up as a team, I can deal with it. Hokage-sama promoted all of us for a reason, not just Shika or Goldie-kun, but me too. She started sounding more and more confident as she continued to speak. Sakura just blinked in surprise at the sudden upswing of self-esteem from Ino. Wow. You really got over that quick. Not really. Ino said, deflating slightly, I'm not really over the possibility yet. But I know what'll help. Sakura watched as Ino took a moment to run towards the back of the store to find someone. Dad. Can I take the rest of the day off to go shopping with Sakura? The pink-haired Kunoichi palmed her face and leaned up against the counter, shaking her head as Ino continued to plead her case to leave to her father. Oh come on. I won the Chunin exams, don't I get any spending money for that? I haven't gotten my own paycheck for a mission in over a month. How did Goldie-kun pay his rent with no income? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Naruto said, trying his best to fit his key into the lock on his doorknob, failing miserably to do so all the while. He changed the locks while I was gone this morning? What the hell happened to common courtesy? Don't I get a month's free rent or at least some kind of grace period on paying? I'm a champion. It was now officially hangover time from his week-long celebration in Tetsu no Kuni and round of kudos for the Chunin exams because life was clearly back in session. With a desperate groan, Naruto pulled his useless key out and stomped over a few doors to knock on another apartment door. The door opened a crack as a chain lock inside kept the full view of the person inside from view. Yes, Naruto? May I help you? A voice said as if there was nothing wrong at all despite the quite miffed look on the young man's face. The landlord was something of a shut-in for the most part. Barely any tenants had ever really seen all of him at one time. For a civilian he had some serious ninja habits. Naruto had seen him of course, but he had been living there long enough to do so. Naruto had to hold himself back from trying to kick his door off of the hinges from the nonchalant attitude of the landlord. The guy was usually pretty alright, he was just really strict with the whole paying on time thing and he was obsessed with keeping a respectable establishment running. Alright, look, I know you're kind of no tolerance over the whole rent thing, but seriously, I have an excuse. I was in the Chunin exams. How was I supposed to get money for the last month? D-rank missions don't really leave you with savings. It's not just that, Naruto, that much I understand. The landlord said, only one eye visible, the fact that you'd been going out of your way to duck me when I tried to talk to you about it the week before you left is another thing. It was completely childish. Naruto just stared at him with a raised eyebrow before pointing at himself. Dude, I'm 12. The man's eye closed as he seemed to be shaking his head in a chiding manner. A double standard? Such irresponsibility already in your Chunin career. I thought you were better than that. All I wanted was to work out a deal with you over the matter. This didn't even have to be a problem. He said calmly. Deal? Naruto squawked incredulously. I've got a deal for you, just give me the key to open my door and I'll pay you after I get back from my next mission, how about that? Come on, I've never missed a payment before. Because Hokage-sama paid for you until you graduated. The landlord chimmered in matter-of-factly, you came close pretty much every month since then. You know my policy. I was very clear when you started paying for yourself. First missed payment you get 2 days to pay and then I change the locks until you can do so. You have a month to do that. Naruto slapped his face to try and keep his composure. So he was forgetful trying to deal with his whirlwind ninja work. He was always on time. Well, not this time of course, but all the other times he paid by noon on deadline day no matter what, even during the one time where he had to run over there and pay in the middle of a team training session. Asuma was really pissed about that one. You're crazy, old man. I really don't need this on top of all of the other stuff going on. Did you know the daimyo wants me to work for him and I have to make a decision on that? Maybe name dropping would grease the wheels? So take it. The man said with a shrug. Maybe he'll pay you in advance and you can get back into your house. Damn it, I will rain down hellfire and brimstone on you. You can't prank me in my own complex, kid, you've been trying it for years. Just get the money and you can get the key to your new lock. Borrow it from a friend or something until you can pay them back. Can I get it from you, friend? No. And with that the door shut in Naruto's face, getting a growl out of him. He could just break in later and that could be that, at least for one night or until he got arrested for trespassing, but it was more along the lines of it being over his principles. Uzumaki Naruto was not a deadbeat. I need money. Who had money? Lots of money that wouldn't mind parting with some of it for the time being. Preferably someone that owed him dearly for services rendered in the past. Or maybe someone that just couldn't say no to him. Jiraiya? No. The man hated springing for Naruto's meals. In what alternate dimension would he pay his rent? Tsunade or Shizune? Maybe if he knew how to find them while they were still in town he had a shot. She said he had won her money during the exams after all. But if being in Konoha didn't make Tsunade any less crabbier, then that idea was doomed to fail. Asuma? What was he, his dad? He wasn't going to make Asuma give him a damn thing. Wait, Sasuke was loaded, wasn't he? But he'd probably just smirk at his misfortune and shut the door to his big fancy house right in Naruto's face before hobbling his injured ass back to bed or to a couch to keep healing. Were they even close enough for him to try that in the first place? On second thought, no one owed him a damn thing, and everyone could say no to him for one reason or another. He wasn't about to run through the list of people he knew so he could get no told to him all day long. There was only one surefire solution to his current problem that would definitely solve it, like it or not. Damn it, I need to go do some D-ranks. Naruto said to himself helplessly as he began to slink his way out of the apartment complex to head towards the mission assignment desk in the administration building. Being a Chunin sucks. 1 hour later, Konohagakure Ninja Academy. Being a Chunin sucks. Naruto repeated under his breath as he stood with his arms crossed outside. How is this a C-rank mission? It sounded too good to be true. An in-village C-rank mission that wouldn't take more than a day to accomplish, and he wouldn't have to share the money. He jumped at it since he didn't feel like taking the full workload of a glorified house chore without his teammates around, and he didn't want to feel like nothing had changed. Chunin didn't routinely take D-rank missions, and he wasn't about to fall into a pattern like that. This C-rank was not that much of a step up in his opinion. Sure, he technically got to fight, but he wasn't really fighting. He wasn't allowed to really fight back. He was more or less a moving training dummy. Standing in the middle of a ring while an entire class of genin looked on, Naruto yawned while off to the side, Iruka was introducing the lesson. Now, in order to spice up the monotony of you all simply sparring against each other, today you get the treat of trying your hand against an actual Konoha Chunin. Say hello to Uzumaki Naruto class. He finished, pointing at Naruto, who was currently lazily scratching his belly underneath his flak jacket and regular clothing. Hello Uzumaki-san. Boss. Naruto Onizuma. The class comprised the first one, the second one happened to be Kano Amaru, Mogi, and Udon, and the third one was Hanabi. Although Hanabi and Kano Amaru took that moment to glare at each other heatedly, getting Naruto to raise an eyebrow at the two youngsters' attitudes after waving to the entire class. They've been like that since Hanabi joined the class this week. Iruka said with a deadpan look on his face, at least they aren't yelling and arguing this time. He then got a little more serious, you do know what you can and can't do, don't you? Naruto was still very uninspired to be there. Yeah, I know, Iruka-sensei. Don't beat the crud out of the kids. I'm not that stupid. He said quietly enough to keep the others from hearing him. One of the kids in the class raised his hand to ask a question. If we're just fighting a Chunin, then why aren't you sparring with us, Iruka-sensei? Why'd you get this kid? Iruka couldn't help but take that moment to pump himself up a bit. Well, I might be a little too advanced for all you kids for your first time fighting. Naruto here used to be a student of mine, so some of my skills obviously rubbed off on him in passing. He gave Naruto a hearty pat on the back, getting a grin out of Naruto despite himself. Now I just want you to do your best against Naruto. I want to see what you all know, and I'll give you critiques later. Another hand shot up out of the crowd. Yes, Kano Amaru. Is boss going to use explosive tags or that cool machete he has with him? The young boy asked excitedly, getting a few of the students to pale as they remembered watching some of what Naruto was capable of during the broadcast of the exams. No. Iruka said with a dry expression, we're trying to make sure as many of you graduate as possible, not trying to weed you out and kill you in the second month. Any other questions? A bunch of hands shot up. Any questions not pertaining to what Naruto's actually going to do to you when you try to fight him? Every hand unanimously went down. Good. Any volunteers? Before anyone could raise their hands, Hanabi and Kano Amaru jumped up and more or less raced to the ring. As they both tried to climb up on the platform, they were steadily trying to shove each other out of the way, fighting over who would actually get to fight. Iruka palmed his face as the class began to clamor over the scuffling brats. He turned to Naruto, who seemed to be getting into his role due to the amusement brought by the two kids. I blame you for this partially. You created a monster out of Kano Amaru. Just let both of them fight me. Naruto said, getting the entire class to freeze and look at him, even Kano Amaru and Hanabi. What? They can't fight me one-on-one, I could step on them and smush them. Out of the two of them Hanabi had the best chance from his personal experience, but it still wouldn't be a chore whatsoever to deal with her. Hey! Both Hanabi and Kano Amaru both said, breaking apart to hop in the ring glaring at Naruto in offense. Iruka was about to talk to Naruto about how he was messing up his lesson when he saw something of an opportunity forming in front of his eyes to prove a bit of a point to two of his feuding students. Actually, yeah. If you want to go against them both, then you can do that. Now make the seal of confrontation and begin. Naruto just looked at Iruka with squinted eyes until he saw Hanabi and Kano Amaru make a half-tiger seal as they faced him. Oh, that. He thought to himself as he did the same. Right. Kano Amaru said as he immediately charged forward, I'm finally going to kick his ass. Get ready, boss. Leaving Hanabi behind, the small Sarutobi boy ran at Naruto with his tiny fists ready to pummel Naruto. What? Hanabi, not wanting to be outdone by someone she knew she could beat, followed behind to try and beat Kano Amaru to Naruto and be the one to defeat him herself. Still Kano Amaru would reach Naruto first as he dropped into his tight stance. A smirk crossed his face as he feigned attacking Kano Amaru prematurely, scaring the boy out of his own attack and getting him to jump back in retreat in case Naruto was really going to go after him. That action caused him to run into Hanabi and send both kids spilling to the ground in a heap. Seeing both kids on the ground without even doing anything, wow, I didn't even have to dodge a punch. Naruto stood up straight out of his stance and watched the scene unfold. Hanabi jumped to her feet first and pointed down at Kano Amaru. You completely got in my way, you clumsy oaf. What happened? Did a butterfly get in front of you and scare you back? Shut up. Kano Amaru heatedly shouted as he got up and in Hanabi's face, it was an evasive movement. You were stepping all on my heels anyway. Why were you so close? Did you want to see how the real apprentice of the boss fights? Just turn your Byakuya thingy on and stay out of the way. You are not Naruto Onisuma's apprentice. Hanabi angrily snapped on him, do I have to walk all over you in more than just classroom grades to get the point across? At this point Iruka decided to step in, and that's enough. He said, getting the class to awe in disappointment. There wasn't even a punch thrown, not much of a fight, sorry but this was kind of meant to prove a point to these two. He said, separating Hanabi and Kano Amaru, Naruto could have just went up to you two and knocked you both out. Look at him. Said Chunin was just sitting cross-legged on the ground staring at them with a smirk still on his face. Trying his best to glare at Hanabi and intimidate her, Kano Amaru spoke to Iruka, what point? This didn't prove anything except that Ghost Eyes here moves like a turtle. I'm faster than you Kono Baka. And don't talk about my Kekai Genkai like that. The insult about her eyes was nearly the last straw. Hanabi was about to paralyze Kano Amaru from the waist down for a few hours to teach him some respect. Before Kano Amaru could press his advantage now that he had found something to hold over Hanabi's head, Naruto's fist bounced off of his. Ow. Hey boss, what was that for? He gingerly held the spot on his head where Naruto hit him. Don't go making fun of little firecrackers' eyes Kano Amaru. That's really not right. Naruto said with a pronounced frown on his face. He looked at Hanabi and even though she was hiding it he could tell that the crack had almost made her cry. I wish you two would stop fighting every time I see you, you never know if you two would end up on a team or something. Then what'll you do, just argue and try to beat each other up all the time. You'll get killed like that. Iruka placed a hand on both Kano Amaru and Hanabi's heads and kneeled down in front of them, that was the point I was trying to make. I knew you two wouldn't fight together, trying to outdo the other. But I didn't think you'd actually stop the match just to bicker. Like it or not you two are comrades and you need to learn how to work together. He stood up and looked at the whole class, that goes for all of you. As ninja we work in teams to cover individual weakness and to protect one another. You need to be able to rely on each other and now that's today's exercise. 3 of you will try to go up against Naruto and myself and will practice cooperation. A blank look came upon Naruto's face at the change in curriculum for the day. Wait, I thought I was just supposed to run circles around these kids for the day one by one. Why are you changing the lesson plan, Iruka-sensei? I blame you. Iruka said with a shrug, now one more of you hop up here so we can actually get this started. After school had let out that day, Iruka went with Naruto to collect his pay for his day's work. He had never seen Naruto so happy to have money in his hands before, but he wasn't about to ask why, nor was he going to bring up the fact that the money that Naruto happened to be happily rubbing all over his face could have been anywhere before making its way to him. He was going to let Naruto have his moment. Either way, he chose to turn his attention to the subject that Naruto had brought up while they had been walking to the mission desk to report that Naruto had finished his job. I wish I could say that I have some advice for you, Naruto, but it's a decision you have to make on your own whether to stay or go. Ending his torrid affair with his newly gained funds, Naruto shoved the money in his frog wallet and grumbled, "You're saying the same thing Shiho-chan said? Even Shikamaru blew me off, and this is his problem too." He fished a coin from his pocket and tossed it into the air. "Maybe I should just flip for it," he said absently before doing just that. Iruka snatched the coin out of the air and rapped Naruto on the head. "Don't leave it to chance, stupid. This is a serious decision you need to make." He then blinked. "Wait, when do you need to make it?" "Ero-sensei said I have half a year," Naruto said, remembering what Jiraiya had told him the night before. "Then why are you thinking so hard about it now, as if you only had until the end of the week?" Iruka wondered to the boy aloud. "Take your time and take in everything that matters about the decision. Don't decide rashly one way or the other." He punched Naruto lightly on the arm in a good-natured way. "For now just enjoy being a chunin like me, huh?" He finished with a grin. Being reminded of his current rank in the Konoha military system and all of the perks it didn't bring, other than the prospect of doing what you want in the way of training of missions mostly, Naruto sighed and just kept walking with his old sensei towards the exit of the building. Being a chunin sucks. You've been a chunin for all of one full day. Give it some time. You got kicked out of your house for not paying rent, didn't you? How'd you know? It happened to me too. And Naruto then laughed long and loud all the way outside of the building at Iruka's former expense. At least it wasn't just him that had a crappy first experience after his first promotion. Maybe being a rookie orphan chunin was what sucked? 2 days later, Naruto was woken by a sharp banging on his front door. It wasn't exactly late, but maybe he was getting lazy because he was definitely sleeping in now. He pulled himself out of bed and ambled his way to the front door to open it and find Ino standing there with an upset look on her face, her foot tapping on the ground impatiently. "Ino-chan, what are you doing here?" Ino took a second to look over the appearance of the groggy Naruto in his pajamas and sleeping cap before getting to the point. "Get dressed." The more tired pair of blue eyes just blinked repeatedly, trying to adjust to the morning sunlight. Naruto was trying to comprehend what was going on. "What?" Ino turned Naruto around and kicked him in the butt to get him to walk back inside. "Get your ass dressed. We haven't done anything since we got promoted. Asuma-sensei didn't tell us to do anything," Naruto said with a yawn as he rubbed his backside and got back to the place where he slept to grab his clothes. "No team meetings or anything." He then walked his way back through his house to get to the bathroom to get ready for the day. "Duh," Ino said as she shut the door to Naruto's bathroom after he got inside lest she see something that she wasn't meant to bear witness to. "We're not required to meet up anymore, Naruto. We're not genin. It's up to us for all of that stuff now." She leaned against the door and raised her voice as she heard Naruto's water turn on. "I was really raging about this the other day until someone finally told me. Unless we're assigned certain members for certain missions, we get to pick our own squads when we work." Her dad finally managed to get a hold of the fuming girl to inform her of these facts. "Who?" A small smile came to her face at that. "So unless you and Shikamaru have any other options or thoughts on the matter, we're still a team." The garbled sound of Naruto trying to talk through brushing his teeth got a laugh out of Ino until he spit and spoke with his mouth clear. "No way. But why didn't anyone tell us that from the start? You freaked out kind of hard on the first day." "I don't know, hazing maybe? Older people are jerks," Ino said with a blush, remembering how she just stormed away from all of the others on the day they were promoted, "and that got me wondering, what else didn't anyone tell us? So that's why you're coming with me and we're getting all of this stuff cleared up once and for all. We'll find Asuma-sensei and kick his butt for just letting us go without knowing anything." "What about Shikamaru?" Shika's busy training with his dad. I went to see him first. Ino remembered how Shikamaru tried to use her as an excuse to shirk his training for that day with his father until his mother dragged him back through the house and threw him out back to get started. I kind of have to do the same thing later with my dad, but for now I'm free. We can find Asuma-sensei, get some breakfast or whatever. Sigh, I just don't want this to fall apart. You're really important to me, you know. Wait, that came out wrong. Or did it? She didn't even get to throw Shikamaru into that remark, or did she omit him intentionally? Was a side effect of being a chunin overthinking things? That had to be the case because Ino had been giving herself headaches for the last 2 days. Ah, thanks Ino-chan. You're important to me too. Well, at least Naruto didn't pick up on the unintended connotation of Ino's last comment. Bless his heart, whoever wound up with him would have to shove the fact that they liked him right in his face to have the slightest chance of him picking up on it. You'd think that someone admittedly trained by a pervert would be better equipped for that sort of thing. Look, go ahead and sit down somewhere in my house, I'm going to catch a quick shower, okay? Don't take all morning then. Ino said as she drifted away from the bathroom door. I have to be home by noon no matter what it is we wind up doing. It's already around 9. Hokage Tower. Asuma and Hiruzen's faces were twisted in frowns at the current information that had been provided by Jiraiya. Why didn't you tell me this beforehand? Asuma asked the Toad Summoner. You know, before the exams would have been nice. Calm down. Jiraiya said, leaning against the window behind the Hokage's desk. I would have if they were active, but I hadn't heard a peep from them in quite some time, since Orochimaru defected in fact. As a matter of fact, he's the only member of them that I knew of. Hiruzen leveled a gaze on his most loyal student before launching a question, yet you found it prudent to bring it up to me now instead of even later. Can you tell me why? Jiraiya could hear the tone in Hiruzen's voice and rubbed the back of his neck. Geez, Sarutobi-sensei, I just wanted to make sure I had all of my facts on them straight and that it was a bigger deal than it was before I brought it to you. I brought it up because I had a source that said that a pair of figures wearing black cloaks with red clouds left Tetsu no Kuni right after the exams ended. That's the uniform of the group. A group that wanted Naruto and possibly other Jinchuriki as well in the no tolerance for shinobi hijinks Tetsu no Kuni. They probably weren't there to take in the sights. They were that close, but didn't try anything on any of the clearly vulnerable Jinchuriki, so they didn't wish to raise an alarm and have the entire country buzzing before they even got off of the mountain. With the multitude of powerful fighters there, it wasn't a good idea at all to do so. So basically, Asuma said again, there's a group out there that wants Naruto's Kyuubi, and they're full of members that are strong enough to chase Orochimaru away. A stiff nod from Jiraiya was his answer. We just promoted that kid in case you didn't know. That means that any day now he's going to be stomping in here demanding a mission to who knows where. We can't really keep eyes on him like that, can we? Yes we can. Hiruzen interjected, pointing at Asuma, you are still the senior commander of the Team 10 cell until further notice. Asuma didn't have any problems with that, but still he had to ask, when do you think further notice will be, forever? Eventually when these guys make a move Naruto's going to know something's up and he won't let it die. I think it'll be until he takes the offer to work for the daimyo. The eyes of the two Sarutobi gentlemen turned towards Jiraiya in surprise. What? Asuma said, you know he's going to take it? How can you know he'd take it? It didn't really seem to be Naruto's kind of speed to decide to leave his home so quickly. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. You're saying you don't think you can convince him to? You have half a year to find a way to help him make his decision. I personally like it. He should go. By now, due to witnessing the exams, the group after Naruto would know he was a Konoha ninja and would know how to find him. If he were to become a guard in the employ of the daimyo, that would give Naruto an extension on anonymity and it would allow him time to grow in strength and skill over time. Aside from that, he would be very easy to check in on and it would overall benefit his career to do so. There was also the fact that the daimyo wouldn't ask slouches to protect him. There was a chance that the bodyguard would have a hell of a list of bodyguards among the ranks. Asuma grumbled to himself over the matter. I might as well make Shikamaru go too if that's the case. Good idea. Jiraiya chirped cheerfully. A friend would definitely make the experience better for him, and from what I saw of the Nara kid, Naruto seems to be able to kick his ass into gear. Go for it and get it done. Are you serious? Asuma said, getting nods from Hiruzen and Jiraiya. That's like trying to shove two stubborn mules up a hill. If they don't want to go, there's no way you can actually make them. Shikamaru especially. Dad, you make them go. Say it's an order or something. Hiruzen gave his son an incredulous look. Right, I'm going to make them go the same way I made you stay. He said sarcastically, I can't order them to accept an offer. It's their own personal choice, no matter how beneficial or not it may or may not be. Is there a reason you don't want them to join when you yourself did so? You were their age when you left. It's not that I have a reason for them to not join. Asuma said with an exasperated look on his face, it's Ino. Inoichi told me she didn't take the whole breakup of the team very well until he was able to explain things to her the right way. And now there's a chance they'll be gone for years. If Naruto and Shikamaru left, or even one of them went, that was not a conversation or an explanation he wanted to be anywhere near. Talk about uncomfortable. That little bit of reasoning put a dry look on Jiraiya's face. So the reason you don't want two of your students, that are legally adults by way of their occupation, to try and go for a huge opportunity is because you're afraid of a 12 or 13-year-old, 4 feet 8 inches, 80-pound girl. Yeah, that's manly Asuma. Instead of rising to the insult, Asuma just stared at him before responding, and how old was Tsunade when she beat you nearly to death again? She won't touch me, it's Naruto and Shikamaru I'd be worried about in that scenario. Being a girl didn't disqualify Ino from being able to kick the crap out of Naruto and Shikamaru if she was distraught. He had more than enough experience with dangerous women to understand as much. I think you are underestimating your students for multiple reasons in this regard. Hiruzen said to Asuma, but be that as it may, there is plenty of time for this situation to flesh itself out. There's no sense of urgency for the deadline yet as long as it is decided within 6 months. He had given Ino her promotion not just because of her performance, but because he saw incredible potential for growth in her. That much was evident by the way she learned to fight that was completely unconventional for Yamanaka clan ninja. She was strong, even if she didn't know it herself. Back to the topic at hand though, Jiraiya nodded, knowing the deadline. I'll do my best to steer him that way, but he might get belligerent if he really doesn't want to go. I know that much about the kid at least, so I'm not going to hammer the point into his head. I'm not his father, I can't tell him to really do anything. He idly wondered what Naruto's father would have done about it or how he would have felt in the first place upon hearing that his son had gotten an offer as a guard from the daimyo. His mother's reaction would probably be far more amusing in contrast, rest their souls. They would definitely be proud of him though, and that's what mattered. Likewise. Asuma said, crossing his arms over his chest as he stood idly, if it happens it happens. If not, well whatever. If you really want me to, then I'll keep supervising select Team 10 missions though. They might like that anyway. And he would like it too, though he would never say so aloud. As a matter of fact, a part of him would think it was cool if he had students that followed in his footsteps, inadvertently though, and became guards to the daimyo. Maybe if the 12 Guardian Ninja hadn't been disbanded they would have had a shot at making it there as well. One could always speculate. And speculate he would. He had 6 months to think about the what-ifs. Hey, you're not a genius. Who cares? Read this and you won't suck at Funjutsu, by Jiraiya. The makings of a Kinjutsu. Since at this point you will very soon begin learning exactly what it takes to begin fashioning your own seals of a personal nature, a very long and arduous process I might add, I figured it would be prudent to enlighten the ignorant masses, i.e. you, on what a Kinjutsu is, since there is always a possibility that your tinkering with seals will end in the creation of one. Seals seem to have that kind of effect on people, coming up with asinine suicide ideas. A Kinjutsu is basically a forbidden technique. Using a Kinjutsu is frowned upon and in some cases outright banned from being taught or used. There are multiple reasons for banning a technique. It could be too costly and run too high a risk of harming the user. A few of the higher level seals one could come into learning fall here, such as the vaunted Shiki Fujin, dead demon consuming seal, that will outright kill you. Another example of a Kinjutsu of a self-harming nature would be the use of the 8 gates. It destroys your body simply for unlocking them, even though the temporary physical boost can be crushing. So in order to figure out whether or not you've invented a Kinjutsu, you should adhere to the following checklist. Does your jutsu cause extreme harm to yourself whenever you try to activate it, possibly to the point of long-standing or permanent damage, shortening of lifespan, or worst-case scenario death? Does knowledge of said jutsu give the user an ultimate ace in the hole that would be rampantly unfair if too many knew it themselves? I mean the kind of jutsu that if it were common knowledge to all it would change the way the shinobi world operated altogether. That kind of unfair. Does your jutsu cause mass amounts of gratuitous destruction? Even more than the usual destruction wrought by many types of ninjutsu? Does your jutsu change the physical properties of things to something unnatural? Does your jutsu have the potential for misdeeds? All techniques have the potential for misdeeds given their usage, but I mean, does your jutsu instantly do something deplorable that would cause a person to turn their head in horror, disgust, etc.? Besides the killing of your target, of course. Does your jutsu violate the laws of nature? Like bringing back the dead to walk amongst the living kind of violate? If you can emphatically answer yes to any one of these questions, then congratulations, you've just created a kinjutsu. Well done on your achievement. I'm quite certain it was very difficult. Now prepare to lock that jutsu away in the confines of your mind, never to be seen by anyone that could possibly utter a word of its existence forevermore. The less people that know of your abomination to the arts passed down to us from the Rakuta Sennin, the better, but the thing about forbidden techniques is that someone always finds out about them somehow. When the news of your new deadly forbidden jutsu drops to your superiors, just say it was an accident and you won't do it again. You're lying, of course, and you're definitely going to do it again, especially after seeing what it did firsthand, but they don't need to know that. That's it for part 15. Thank you for watching and see you on the next video.